Good morning. Can't hear you.
Mute. Nope. Hi, Michael.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. Is this a good time to talk to you about reflections versus shadows in water?
Sure, we can do that now, or you know what, we can do it in the second painting I'll be talking about is the one with the marsh kind of and the kind of sunrise. But yeah,
Okay.
go ahead and ask me questions and I can bring them back up if they're relevant too.
Okay. Well, I have to admit that I don't know of any ponds around here that have reeds or vegetation that I could go look at. So what I did was I went online and I found as many photographs as I could possibly find. And some of them had good light and some of them didn't. But it seems in some photos that you could have both. You could have a shadow and a reflection, and it seemed in others it was only a shadow, and it seemed in others it was only a reflection. And so
Depends on where the light is. Yeah.
yeah, so I was just like totally confused because my light is over to the right and behind
Mhm.
the one group that you were talking about, and I understand what I did wrong with the reflection of the trees. But I was wondering, so would I have both? Because I have painted in what looks like shadows, but I noticed reflections also were more broken up if the water was not perfectly still. They
Yeah.
were kind of broken up
Yeah.
and they seemed to be darker than the shadows.
If they're reflecting something darker, they could be, yeah. And they will reflect into the shadows as well. I'm kind of looking through photos I have to see if I have anything. Let's do screen share.
Oh, that'd be
Good morning,
wonderful.
everybody. Oops, I probably want to do this one. So I'll just bring up different photos at a time. So are you seeing kind of a green creek here?
Yes.
Okay, so what we have here, because it's side lit, I'm looking at this tree up in the left. So the light is coming from the right and coming across. So all shadows are going to the left. So any
Okay.
of the shadows that we see are probably coming from off to the right screen and coming across the water. And you can kind of see where there's dappled light.
Uh-huh.
So those are areas that are not in shadow, but most all of this water is in shadow. And then what we're seeing is the reflections. And
Right.
you'll often be able to tell because reflections will actually have, you know, a mimicking of the lights and the darks that we're seeing up above. Whereas the shadow is just a darkening of the water. Let me see if I can bring up another one here that has maybe some of both. All right, are you able to see this? Nope. So do screen share again. So here we have backlit, kind of like yours was.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So you can see the shadows being cast. So our light's somewhere kind of back in here. You can kind of see the light raking across here, the light coming across. The sky and the colors of the leaves are reflecting. Let me see if I can just change that without where are ones that have shadows and reflections? I need like a 3/4 light. Let's see if this painting, are you seeing a painting now?
No, not yet.
Okay, I'd probably have to share it again. Just seeing, this one's mostly reflections.
Maybe you need to remove the other one.
Probably, yeah. Stop share.
Okay,
So
you said that last one was all shadows.
it was shadows coming across. Oh, yes, it was all shadows for the most part. The
Okay.
reflections were in the colors of the on the water
Okay, from
and whatnot.
more,
This one's another example of that. Let me see if I can zoom it in a little for you. I'm not even sure who painted this painting. But you can see these are just reflections coming in.
uh-huh,
The light is just basically up above. You can see on the rocks where the light's coming from.
right.
And then in this case, the reflections are blotting out the reflections of the sky, and they're allowing us to see into the water, which is always kind of a fun, interesting effect
Hmm.
time to time. Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to find a good example just in my photos really quickly where we're getting both reflections and shadows. Give me 1 second while I kind of look through them really quickly. Okay, this one is not a very great photo. It's kind of blasted out. Where did I just get it? But I think maybe we'll get a okay look at it. So we're looking at shadows versus reflections in waters really quickly, everybody. So here we go. So again, it's kind of the inverse of the other one where the light is obviously coming from, now it's coming from behind us and to our left.
Okay.
Okay, so it's shooting through this dark forest and, my camera just couldn't capture it. I may have other photos where the detail in this tree, but you can see what's happening. The light's coming up this water,
Mm-hmm.
hitting the bank, blasting out the tree. But look what's happening. You see the reflection of that tree down into the cast shadow. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, but the shadows are not cast by that tree. They're cast by something that's further to the left and behind us.
Exactly right.
Okay. Okay.
So here we have shadows going across the water, across the land. You can see the dappled light appearing in places, even in the water in the foreground. Look at the rock and the, is it changing as I zoom in and stuff?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can see this branch and rock and little clump of stuff here, all in shadow. All these grasses are in shadow, but yet it's reflecting light down into the water, into the reflected area.
Okay.
So yeah, here we have shadows and really bright reflections. Makes for some, I don't want to lie, kind of difficult effects to paint, but it can be really fantastic when you get it. And sometimes the key, this is where a good reference would be great, is the key would be for me to paint more of what I'm seeing and less of what I'm thinking, because we can really get ourselves in a lot of trouble when we try to overthink everything.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a extreme example. Let me
Well, that's probably where I got in trouble because that farthest group of reeds was not in my photo. I just felt it needed something there. So I added it. And of course, I added it out of my mind and I got into trouble. So,
Right. Yeah. So here's one more example. Um, so there's my friend Brenda Boylan, who, if you've
oh,
taken
yeah.
classes at OSA, probably know her. She and I go out painting a lot, and this I was just excited to show her this creek that I paint a lot, and I just love it. In this example, the light is coming from off the right side, it looks like. And so it's hitting these trees up in the top here, and it's also creating dappled light across here. So it's it's a cross shadow, but we're still seeing, like, look at the bright trees above Brenda, and now look into the reflection. They're reflecting that light, even within the shadows. And yes, you're right. Even though the shadows are being cast across the water, the shadow on the dark side of the tree that's being lit is casting a darker shadow than the shadow itself. And then we're still seeing reflections of the blue sky up above. So yeah, there's a whole lot of stuff. Water is tricky in that you're painting movement, you're painting the depth, the transparency, the reflection, and the shadows, all within this one amorphous form. So that's, oftentimes if I'm kind of making up my water, I have a couple simple tricks where I just drag the brush down and then quickly drag it across in a couple areas just to create some of these. So like if I was doing the tree, I would bring those colors down, and then with my brush, I would just kind of lightly hit it across, or whatever angle the water is moving. This water you can kind of see is rippling around in there. Yeah, and then you have the transparency. You can see some of the rocks. You can see some of the shadows under the rocks. Over here, where the blue sky is reflecting, is too strong. So all we're seeing is the reflection. So it's a matter of, asking good questions of what the reference is showing you. But
what creek is this?
I think it's called Humbug Creek. It's on the way from Portland to the coast off Highway 26.
Oh,
That creek you kind of follow along. And it kind of appears and disappears multiple times. And there's a couple spots that I like to hike down. And there is a little trail along here. And then Brenda over on that side, either I or she, probably myself, there's a couple logs that you can go across the creek. I took her out there one time in the winter to show her how beautiful it was and go paint. And as I was going across the log in the wintertime, my sunglasses fell into the water.
Oh.
I had to strip down into my underwear and get in this freezing cold creek to get them. Luckily, they just sank straight to the bottom, and the water's so clear I could see it, but that made for a very short day.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a beautiful creek. And there's a little bit of a trail, probably maybe a quarter-mile trail. And I like to just wear my boots and go beyond up and follow in the creek.
Michael, could I ask you a quick question? If you were painting this from that angle, the water in the river, what color, if you were painting this picture, and what color would you paint the undercolor of the river? Would it be kind of a greenish, brownish gray?
Yeah, I mean, that would be a great place to start, because then you could, bring you can think of kind of the depth if you wanted to. Again, I try not to paint things too often where I'm thinking, okay, I'm painting the depth first and then this and then that. I can keep it pretty impressionistic and pretty abstract. But yeah, that would be a great color, because then you can bring the light across the top. And again, I often will think dark to light, right? So I could squint my eyes in there and kind of look into what are some of the darker colors, what are some of the more neutral colors that, when I bring the splash of blue reflecting into the water and stuff like that. It's amazing what our brains will fill in, like just by having that little bit of blue down in the corner of this photo. we don't for 1 second doubt that there's a blue sky up there, even though we can't see it. And that's something I think I should probably talk about. Class has started, so I guess I can talk about it. Is that one of the biggest problems we get into as painters is not trusting our viewers and trying to tell them everything. And a lot of times, you know, even if they're not mentally actually even thinking, oh, there's a blue sky, that just fills in the data enough that that works for their brains. But yeah, this was an interesting one. And that's always been the problem or tough part for me with this creek is that the trees canopy over the top of the creek. So you're not getting a whole lot of light and it's very, very busy. You can see just tons of these spindly trees. I'm gonna do a stop share and pull up one more of how busy and how beautiful it is. I'm actually working on, oh yeah, here we go. This one's fantastic. Sorry guys, we just got off on a tangent and we will be getting to class, but we're talking about reflections and shadows within water. So here is a really good example, right? You can see the light raking across these trees. Everybody seeing the creek again? You can see the light raking across. You can see the dappled light in the water. It's just so beautiful. It's backlit a little bit, you know, not fully backlit. It's up in the right corner. It's hitting just enough of the trees. And then look at the reflections of the dark shadowy trees. But even within those shadows, you do catch little glimpses of the light reflecting in there too. And then over here on the right bottom of the water, the light of those leaves is reflecting in. So you can see, I mean, it's just innately beautiful. It's kind of like one of my favorite places. It's kind of paradise on earth to me. If I was a settler, I would want to put one of my cabins near here, you know, except for in the winter, it gets really high water. Oh, and there's the logs back there that I climb across. But it is very, very busy. It is so easy to get overstimulated by the beauty and overstimulated by all these trees. So that's always a big part of what I'm looking for is how do I simplify? How do I use the important parts? One of the paintings I'm working on now, let's see if I can pull it up, is just a very zoomed in piece of it. Screen share one more time, you guys. Hopefully everybody's okay with this little instant detour. Everybody can see this, rocks in the foreground, some trees. So I've actually drawn this up twice. I plan to paint it 2 times, once as a horizontal, once as a vertical, at slightly different times of the day. But I really like the lead in. I like the counter angles. But this big mass of trees was really interesting in trying to figure out, okay, which are the most important trees? Which ones, you know, give me the best angles? Which ones can I basically clear cut to allow more of the light in the background? And then the tricky part with that is when you're working from a good reference is to actually remember the trees that you've clear cut so they're not in the reflections. I've had to go back and go, oh, there's ghost trees in my water reflecting in. But I really like mostly shadow in the foreground with a little bit of light hitting just this forward left rock. And that kind of helps create the angle. That tree up in the right corner keeps us in the angle. Everything follows around. I think I've created a counter angle tree, kind of one tree leaning a little bit the opposite way on the left upper corner to keep us within the scene. Otherwise, it just kind of does this quick whipping in and out of the scene.
You've got that one little piece of blue there.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? I don't know if I would put that in or not, or if I might bring in more of the blue down into the bottom left corner. That's a little
too much for one little spot.
And it's so perfectly right in between those 2 tree branches, those trunks, that it looks odd. You're right. Good catch on that. So those are the kind of things, you know, you're always going through and questioning. So when I'm looking at this, I'm going, okay, I love this. I love this. This is important. This is the reason I chose it. These trees up here are important, but less so. Maybe I can even, you know, blur them out or hint at them. Yeah, but you can see the light coming from the left side. And how I know that is because it's hitting the left side of this tree. The right side is in shadow with some beautiful reflected light coming back down onto the tops of those. But it's coming from the left, and you can see the dappled light coming across and hitting certain areas. Yeah, let's see if it's not a great painting, but one that I'm working on nonetheless. Let's see if I have a photo of it. I do not. Yeah, all right, cool. Let's get back to class. All right. Good morning, everybody. Looks like we got a great turnout for class number 5 already. Holy cow. Can't believe it. Class number 5. So last week we started the cloud painting. And if you were paying good attention, I didn't put you to sleep by the end of class, you kind of saw my painting go off the rails a little bit at the end there. I kind of probably should have stopped painting a little earlier, or anyways, the painting got super thick, and the colors were just not quite right. And I did kind of what I talked to you guys about, is I kind of tried to paint my way out of it for a little while, made things a little bit worse. So first is an apology. Second is I hope you learned from my mistake. And the third thing I did was I left the painting up for a couple hours after class. And when my daughter came up and gave me the wide-eyed shock of what have you done, I realized, okay, let's try and fix this a little bit. Because if I just let that dry and then tried to paint over it, it was very, very clumpy, very thick. And again, I still had these very vibrant blues and greens, and my pinks, which should have been the brightest, were more browny, pinky, not very beautiful anyways. So what I did, and I should have shot a video, I apologize. As soon as I started wiping it down, I kind of realized, oh, this would have actually been a good lesson. So what I did was I simply took my palette knife and scraped it across and pulled up the biggest clumpy areas, because if I just started brushing that out, it would cover the whole canvas. There was so much paint on there. And then I took a big soft shop brush. Actually, it's a house painting brush, synthetic, pretty soft. And I just lightly brushed across, not like a crazy person. It was somewhat thought out, even though I was very frustrated and would have been happy to just go crazy on it. But I basically, thinking of the color wheel, painted colors that were closer to each other. I kind of didn't mind them blending together, like the blues, purples, and the pinks. I didn't mind those. The blues and the greens, those could kind of bond. And so it ended up kind of subduing the colors, because of course they were getting some cross contamination, but actually I really like that, because again, when we mix across the color wheel, we get kind of a grayed down image. And that's where that painting is now. I did not paint back into it at all. All I did was subdue it, make it controllable, so that the next time I get into paint on it, it's approachable, and hopefully I can continue to paint on that. Okay, did everybody get the email or see the announcement on the Facebook page about the great big painting?
Yes.
That's funny. All right, I got to get rid of the background because it doesn't let me change scenes.
Can everybody please mute their mics? Thank you.
There we go. All right, so there's the great big painting up on my easel right now. And want to talk about that one a little bit. I did just post on Facebook kind of a little background of what happened in our family right before class last week, a day or two before class. Is my cousin-in-law, who lived with us for a year and is still our neighbor, one of my best friends, lost his only brother and two children in a car accident on their way to school. And it really affected us, affected everybody. It was brutal. And trying to figure out screen share again. So here's a picture of the three of them. And I posted a little bit about that just as kind of a background. I didn't truly know them very well, but it really affected me in the way that it was affecting my cousin and a really good friend, and then everybody around him. And then also, yeah, it just kept, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Wasn't sleeping at night, and I wasn't anyways, how I dealt with it, and I've never done this before, you know, when dealing with grief and stress and things, is I truly just painted. I in the late night, I was just pulling out my little sketchbook and just standing in the kitchen, you know, with one light so I didn't wake up the family, and filled up a little sketch pad of just painting and painting and painting, not really caring where they were going. And then the next morning, after I had driven them to the airport for the funeral, I just couldn't think of what to paint. I couldn't bring myself to get back to anything. And I do have paintings I desperately need to finish for a show coming up. And so I just pulled out a big canvas, a 4 foot by 5 foot, and just kind of painted, just kind of attacked it using a big brush. The colors that came out were quite dark. You guys can all see that, and quite moody. And it wasn't thought out. I know in this class I've been talking a lot about planning and everything else, but in this instance it just started with big gestural dark clouds. Actually, some of the grayish greeny color you're seeing is actually from the painting that was there underneath. And then the rocks kind of just started to form. And in talking with my cousin the night of the accident, and then the next morning when I took him to the airport, he was just saying that it just kept coming in waves, the grief and the memories, and you know, he could forget for a second. And so I started just putting in waves, and that's what I did for a day, was just kind of paint this big 4 foot by 5 foot painting. And a day or two later, I was able to kind of go back in and start adding some surf, and it started to lighten up. I started to build in some of the form of these rocks, and I think this was the day of the funeral. I started to do this, and it just, like he was saying, it just kept coming in waves, where, you know, I would be thinking about the poor mother that was left behind. I'd be thinking about Josh and how he's lost his only brother. I'd think about Josh's son, who's lost all of his cousins. I would think about even the gentleman who was in the car accident who survived. And yeah, it comes in waves. So the following days after the funeral, and talking with everybody, and, you know, calling over into Mississippi and seeing how everybody's doing, I was able to start bringing in excuse me, I was able to bring in light and color, and that's where I'm at now with the painting. So that's where I'm at now with the painting, and want to add some more light into it. And
Michael, do you need to take a break, maybe?
yeah, give me a minute, and I'll meet you guys at the easel.
Okay.
All right, give me 1 second. I'm going to try to set it up so that it's going to me. Speaker view. And how do I make it so it stays here again? I feel like I'm relearning how to use Zoom every class. All right, hopefully I've got that pinned. All right. Everybody's seeing the easel now?
Yes.
Great. And I apologize. This is going to be a little bit tricky. It's huge, 4 foot by 5 foot. So the lighting, I actually got on Zoom earlier and really tried my best to figure out the lighting. And so I think that's about as good as I could get it. We can experiment just a touch more. But what I want to do with this, let me move over there, is cords everywhere here. All right. What I want to do is bring some of this light across the tops of some of these waves. And I'll zoom in a little bit so we can see a little more of what's going on here. And
Michael,
yep.
thank you so much for sharing that with us. That was what a beautiful tribute to that family. And it's such an unimaginable loss. I'm so sorry.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, and I knew there was a good chance that that would happen, but I don't know. Yeah, thank you. And then what I've got going on down here is this is kind of like a wet beach. It's not even showing in the scene. It's so big. Maybe I can zoom out a touch more. Nope, that's all the way zoomed out.
We
I
can
can see it. You can see it.
There we go. So what we have down here is just a very, very wet beach. So we've got the reflecting sky colors coming down into there, some of the shadows and some of the reflections of the rocks. It's really hard to see, but I actually have kind of top lit some of the rocks. So there is actually information in the rocks as they go back. And that was really an interesting kind of fun challenge, is the little bit of mist and then allowing the rocks to get slightly lighter as they go back into space. I'm at the very end of my cord, so I'm trying not to make sure it doesn't get unplugged. But back here, having these rocks, having kind of the sea mist and allowing them to disappear, and then trying to figure out how much information do I still capture as the light's kind of coming across the rocks and everything else. So the thing I want to work on really quickly today is this water here is probably about a foot deep. Here it's 6 inches down to 1 inch. And one thing I have noticed in and it's an interesting thing trying to make up such a busy scene, but like I was telling you, it's just kind of been evolving slowly. And I spend so much time out at the beach, and a lot of the time is spent sitting watching the surf because it's magic. But in this thinner water here, so again, if you can imagine, it's only 1 inch, 2 inches, up to 6 inches deep above the sand, is that you're actually going to get a slightly stiller water. So I don't want it quite as busy as I have here. And then the stiller water, of course, is going to be reflecting more of that sky color. So what I can do, just to make it a little easier to see, is I can show you kind of the whole painting. And again, there's photos on the Facebook page if you want to see it. I'll turn off the light really quickly because it's kind of blasting it out. You can see it's a moody, kind of a somber picture. And I actually texted it to my cousin yesterday and all the different process. And I wanted to ask him permission if it was okay if I talked to you guys about it and used, painted it in class to finish it up here. And he was honored, thought that was neat. And he really liked it too. Sorry, I'm trying to fix the tripod. So anyways, what I can do is change the camera angle because I'm not going to be working much into the sky. I'll zoom in there and show you a little bit about what's going on. And this is a really important lesson, is how do I paint the clouds versus the rocks versus the water? How do we allow these things to feel differently, right? How do you make rocks feel like rocks, water feel like water, and clouds feel like clouds? Turn the light back off again. We can zoom in there. And in the sky, it is almost no hard edges. Nothing nearly as crisp as the rocks in the foreground. You can see their edge quality is really pretty sharp and tight. It gets, of course, softer as they get closer to the water or if there's waves kind of breaking around them. But as we go up in the sky, it gets soft right away, but then it even gets softer and softer and softer until you can't even tell where clouds are beginning and the background is taking form. I brought some detail out as I was working on the colors in the skies. I wanted to, reflect that sunset warmth through it, but at the same time, I had to remember that it's not as vibrant or as bright as the source of the light itself generally. With the water, it's kind of the in-between of the two with the rock and the clouds. So there's some hard edges a little bit where we get kind of the waves cresting against. And then even in that same wave pattern, I did create some lost edges where they, when they're crashing, they kind of begin to mist and foam, and hard to see the lighting. But I really like when there's a little bit of that wind and the kind of the top edges of the cloud of the waves kind of get blown around. So it was interesting to play with all these different effects. Sorry if I'm making you guys seasick. Moving this back and forth. So my goal really quickly is to, and it may be a little bit difficult here with this, is to add some of this light, because it gets pretty warm up in the sky, is to bring a little bit of that warmth onto the top crest of some of these waves, and then some of that sky reflection down into the more shallow water. All right, and I don't need to do too much of it. I don't want to bore you because it could be kind of tedious. I just left my colors in my tray. This is the tray that I used to put in the freezer. I think we talked about that. It's kind of those big acrylic Tupperwares. So I just left it in that so I could pick it up from time to time to show you, because of course we can't see exactly what I'm mixing and what I'm painting at the same time due to the size of the painting. So anyways, what I will do is I'm thinking it's this light hitting these waves, remembering where the light is coming from. It's coming from the back sides of these waves. It's coming from the back side of these rocks. And over here, it's coming from the angle, so you can get a little more light wrapping around the sides of the rocks. And maybe I could bring some of that light coming down the tops of the crests of those waves, just a little bit. Lately, I've been playing a lot with using a palette knife to apply the paint. In fact, the crests of these waves I actually first put in with my palette knife, which allowed me to make kind of nice straight edges. Where the wave goes down, oftentimes I would add a little more of this paint, knowing that I could then take my brush and drag that down a little bit to add more foam. So where the waves are going up, you're just seeing the crest of the wave a little more. And then again, where they're coming down over here, you've got a congregation of rocks. And so it's just kind of foamy mess in there where everything's getting caught up and kind of beat up a little bit. Does that make sense? So I don't use a palette knife nearly as much as I wish I did in painting, but I am finding it to be a lot of fun for waves, some rock formations. Again, it just kind of helps, like in how I paint clouds. Probably palette knife wouldn't be my best friend because it kind of does want to make sharper, crisper edges, but I should definitely play with that, because just because I put down a mark with my palette knife doesn't mean I can't push it and pull it and do things with the palette knife. I think I mentioned this in the previous class, in the design class, that I don't generally love palette knife paintings by other artists. But what I do love are palette knife and brush paintings by other artists. There's a lot of artists who combine the two to such fantastic effect. And so I definitely think there's a place for palette knife in my paintings. And I'm just beginning to learn and experiment. And if you've been a student of mine for very long, you've heard me say that for years, because they scare me somehow. And they're real hit or miss for me. So anyways, I'm thinking about this back sunset color. And I'm thinking about what is it doing as it comes and hits these very cool, borderline stormy, or at least turbulent waters. And I want just the crest. Again, it's backlit, so just some of this transparent light is going to be hit. And then, I can bring just touches up, but I don't want to overdo it. I really don't want this to become cheesy or anything. I want it to retain the somber feeling that, it started with, but at the same time, kind of the recovery and the processing that has been going through. So now basically what I did was I've said, okay, I'm looking into this center pile here. I've got kind of the reds, I've got kind of the yellows, but I definitely, if I put in anything nearly that bright on here, it would take away from the light source and it just wouldn't look very realistic. Another thing I notice is that the crests of waves can be really quite white when they're in the light. So I'm going to kind of overplay that. It's not showing as much of a color there, but it's on the pink side, kind of, again, my favorite color, the peachy color. And I will just give that a test, and you guys are going to have to let me know if it's showing up at all. I'll zoom in. I'm going to go to the wave right below the sun first. And I'm going to be hesitant here. I'm going to make sure I don't have too much paint on my palette knife, so I'll scrape off a lot of it. And I'm just going to pick up I'm going to try to pick up just on the edge of the palette knife. I'm just going to very lightly get a little more paint. The thing too that I like is that I let these waves dry fully, so that I'm getting that little bit of texture that can reach out and kind of grab off of the palette knife. So I don't really even have to hit it too hard showing up a little bit, isn't it? Not too much.
Yes, it's showing up.
I just kind of want that sparkle. Barely hitting the surface. Let's see if I can even zoom in a little more. Yeah, you're seeing that little bit of warmth in comparison. I will then be able to take a dry brush. There's no paint on here. And I can take and make that into kind of a warm foam or a warm mist.
You froze.
Michael, are you there?
We lost your connection.
Maybe he'll sign back in. We got to get him to pin himself.
He probably got a phone call.
Maybe it just disconnected. It says it made me the host. Does it say that to you guys?
Yes, you're the host now.
Let me know if you, I don't see him on there trying, like I don't see him on there trying to get in.
Does anybody know his phone number? Yeah, I was just, yes.
Where does it say the host is?
It's at the very top.
He must have noticed because he disappeared. He's probably trying to come back in. Thank you for being our hostess. Could I have a cup of coffee, please?
Dan, what you doing, bub?
I think it's amazing he can channel his grief into such a beautiful painting. It's really.
And still have that little bit of hope there. That's really touching.
Yeah.
Well, I know he said that happened before last class, right?
Right.
So that could have been what happened with the painting, you know?
Yeah.
It
Actually,
happened that recently?
it made me feel better because I've repainted my sky on the painting I'm working on at least 7 times. So to see him adjust once made me feel better.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lorianne, for what you said, because you put into words what I was feeling, but I wasn't quite sure how to say it. So thank you for what you said to him.
Second that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's perfect.
I can't imagine losing 2 babies and your husband
Oh,
in a morning.
yeah, I can't either.
You know, I'm sorry, I was absent because our car was stolen this morning. Did this happen very recently?
I don't know.
Okay,
He heard about it right before last class.
no, that recently. Well, then
Yeah, I
he's
think
really,
it was a couple of days before the last class is what you
Yeah.
mentioned.
Yeah.
wow.
I don't
Well,
know. I was going to say, I don't know very much about Zoom. Should we leave the meeting?
Yeah, I was just thinking that. Should we all sign out and sign back in? Or, I mean, because I don't know how else.
I don't think that will make a difference. I
Oh,
don't think that will make a
back.
difference.
He's back.
Yeah, he's joined back.
All
Yeah.
right.
Good. Yeah, sorry, we completely lost all internet in our family. You could hear my wife and daughter going, "Hey!"
Yeah.
I don't know what happened there. I don't know if somebody bumped something downstairs or what. So anyways, I apologize.
Okay, that's all right.
Michael, could you turn us all off so that we don't get the pictures of people who are talking?
Yeah,
Sure.
or else pin yourself, and that way they won't pop up.
Oh, there you go. I don't know enough about Zoom. in yourself.
And if everyone keeps their mics closed until they need to speak.
Yep, give me 1 second. Yeah, it undid all my settings I had previously here.
Can only go grandpa.
All right, anybody, how do I make myself the participants? All right, mute all. There we go. Everybody's been muted. And trying to, once again, to figure out how do I make myself the main view. Is that working?
We,
We see the painting.
that's
Okay.
right, the painting.
Great, I'll be right back over there here in a second as soon as I video settings. There was a way to make it so that it just stayed on my camera. But I'm not seeing it. Maybe I'm not the lead person right now. I wonder if it jumped over and made one of you guys somehow.
No, you're the host now.
Okay.
Is there any like little dots on the side of your image that you could make yourself pinned?
There we go. Spotlight for everyone. Okay. There we go. Thank you. Whew. All right. Hopefully I didn't just keep talking too long when I disappeared there. Where I think I was, and correct me if I'm wrong, was as I add this little bit of warmth, if I go overboard, because it's nice and dry, I can come back in and almost use a Q-tip as a little bit of an eraser. Whew, blurry. There we go. Okay. Was that where I was talking about when I jumped off?
Yes, exactly. That's where you were.
All right. So I'm just going to do a little more into these waves because I don't want to bore you by going across every wave and doing all this, but I'm going to try to, I'll try to finish this little wave over here. So this angle is going to be a little stronger because it's kind of angled towards the light. And then a little less over here, can pick up little pieces. But yeah, just a little bit of warmth. I'm looking forward to that. And I think it will, again, speak to kind of the theme of this painting. Now what I'm going to do is jump down into the more transparent water, or not transparent, just shallower water.
Excuse me, Michael, I
yes.
just want to point out that from looking at it from here, when you put that pink on the top, it strengthened the pink at the bottom of the wave, which surprised me. I didn't expect that. I don't know if anybody else noticed.
It does.
Yeah, that's probably, yeah, that is interesting. And then these reflections, so that was really bright and light. I mean, it almost appears as yellow, white yellow in here as opposed to the pink that I actually have it. Yeah, boy, it really wants to read is so bright. But here it's gonna be considerably more grayed down. It's almost kind of a plum, like a pink plum kind of a color. And I'm just gonna kind of make that a slightly darker because this water is a little rougher. It's not catching quite as much light, but definitely not as bright and light as I got into the tops of those waves back there. So,
And Michael, the very back wave behind there, you leave to sort of behind that wave, the white right under the sun.
Yeah, I will decide, and you know, we can try and see what happens, but it's barely there. There's actually even another one even further back that I don't think you guys are able to see. There you go. once that 36 disappears, there we go. And so I can experiment with that, right? Let's see if I just add the littlest amount. Ooh, one big dab. It's interesting how, I could spend one day and completely cover this whole 4 foot by 5 foot painting, and then the next day bring in a whole bunch of waves and light. And then today, if it wasn't in class, I could spend all day just doing little tiny fine details. It's always amazing to me how a painting can start really quickly and then just really slows down. I think that's one of the reasons that most teachers and most people doing demos don't do the end of a painting as their demo, is because it's just, I would do a brush stroke or two. Then truthfully, if, I wasn't in class and I didn't have cameras and cords everywhere, I would be stepping back to the back of my studio and looking at it, maybe even taking a seat for a second and then coming back up and adding just another couple brush strokes, because at this point it really changes things. And I'm always asking the painting, how much can you handle? How much can you bear and still retain the mood and story and feeling that I'm after? How much, I hesitate to do it, but could I put a big dash of light and color? Again, it doesn't show up too much, but I want it to be subtle. And so in the subtlety, it often takes even longer to paint. Let's see if I bring this light on. Whoop, nope. All right, that's something I'm going to try to work on between the classes before the next one, because the next one will be even more, fine details. We're working on our brush strokes. I think I can get some diffusers put on some of these lights that might help us to not have so much glare. But anyways, it's slow. It's slow going, and it's just a constant conversation of how much can you handle? How much do you want? Sometimes you go too far a little bit and you go, you know what? I actually like that. I like the fact that, maybe this whole painting could use more light and color, or maybe not. When I was talking with my cousin yesterday, he actually said that he would prefer that I keep it very calm, because I said, I can just keep adding light and stuff to it. But, all right, so I've got that really light color on top of my waves. These are kind of the colors that are in the sunset back there. So I know that it's somewhere kind of in between those, but a much grayer, cooler version of those colors, right? I actually have retained some of the grays from the last couple of days of painting. So I'm going to try to see if I can slightly shortcut the system by just bringing over a little bit of that pink, and let's add in quite a bit of that gray. So we're getting kind of a gray down, a little more red into it. Also got to remember to look into the painting itself. And actually gray that down just a touch more. Because again, this isn't a focal point for me, or, across here on the other side. This area is not kind of the focal point. I do like the lead in. I kind of like the angles that have been created, kind of these ways in. And I think that's kind of an important part of the narrative of how this painting has evolved, is that there are these kind of rocks and these waves and everything else, but there is kind of a way for our eye to travel in and through it. In some of my initial sketches, I actually had more rocks kind of in the front and stuff. And I didn't want it to feel overly inviting, but it didn't have it wasn't inviting at all. It really didn't have a way in. I'm gonna move this whole cleaning station here so it's not casting that big shadow. All right, so I've kind of created a cool plummy purpley gray color here, and I'm just gonna go ahead and test that. The good thing is I don't need a whole lot of variation in my colors. And I'm gonna go ahead and throw in just a touch of the Galkid gel, just a touch of it. It'll help the paint be a little more transparent. So some of the lights of the foam and some of the darks of the grays in here will show through. So I've got a little bit of Galkid gel. Just gonna mix that in. It's not much, it's a couple drops. Because I'm not really trying to glaze in per se at this stage. I'm still wanting to cover. And I'm gonna do a quick test and see, kind of putting it next to some of the, oh man, that was almost exactly the same color as before. I can even put it right on top. It's actually just a little bit brighter than it is here. So I can actually use some of that because of the reflection of the sun possibly hitting down in here.
Can you move the camera down just a bit?
Let's try. All right. You'll probably hear my cat here in a little bit. He spent last night outside, so he's needing a lot of love and reassurance today. So he's been following us around, talking to us. Oh, here, kitty, you can meet everybody. Here's my annoying studio mate.
Oh,
His name is Rambutan, but everybody just calls him Kitty Boy. So I'm just kind of thinking, I want it to lay down. So most of my brush strokes are kind of going to be sideways, which will give it a feeling of rest. Because this part, again, is just not as busy of surf as the other areas. I'm going to gray that down just a touch more even. I'm just using a soft synthetic. This is a spectrum brush from Trekell, T-R-E-K-E-L-L. And I think I talked about those. You can only order them online. But I'm really liking them as far as kind of a synthetic blend where it's soft. It's got nice long bristles. And it seems to keep its shape really well, which sometimes with the softer brushes, I lose my shape a little. I'm actually going to gray that down even more. I'm noticing here that this is competing with down here, and I don't want that. So I'm actually going to even take my shop towel and just kind of give that a little bit of a wipe. There we go. So that it's not quite so
How
strong.
much that color really popped.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically kind of a transition, right? From the busy surf and the kind of light blue grays of all that foam down into where the water begins to get just a little bit stiller. Again, because it's only an inch or two deep, it settles down so much faster, right? The turbulence of it settles down so much faster. And like I said, I'm just testing. I'm just going, okay, can the painting handle that? Yes or no? Is it too bright? Because again, I don't want it competing against that or this. I want it as a transition between this and in here. So I'm just continuing to gray it down a little bit. I can also, like I said, test it down here. There we go. It's definitely grayer. I'm going to actually make it a touch bluer. Its reading is kind of greenish.
Michael, is that a turquoise on your palette?
Yes, I've got a whole bunch of different palettes all saved on here. I've gone out plein air painting a couple of times in the last sunny evenings with some friends, and so I went out and experimented with the CMYK colors again. So they're on here. It did not work out. Side note, wiped that painting off. And then these are just some of the grays and color mixtures that have been left over from the last couple of days of painting. So I'll save those separately. But yeah, I've got the CMYK colors and then my normal split primary palette. So in this instance, I'm trying to stay pretty, this painting has been done with the split primary palette. So I'll kind of stick to that so that the harmony stays. And I'm also trying to remember some of the shadows of this and some of the reflections might be coming down. So, you know, as I get close to the undersides of rocks, I probably won't be adding as much of the light. And I'm not caring if it goes on really, really solid, because I just, you know, I want there to be a feeling of movement and rippling in the water. Just, I want it to have less than it does now. That's the other thing you'll notice about this brush is it holds a strange amount of paint. It feels like I don't have to reload my brush very often. Let's just see. Let's just keep watching and seeing how much can I just keep painting. I'm going to change the angle of the camera to the side just so I'm not blocking it as much.
Would you please repeat the name of the brush again? And it's
Yeah, I'm not going to tell you it's a magical brush, but it is a brush I'm enjoying. It's Trekel, T-R-E-K-E-L-L. I found out about them from a friend of mine who works with them. And this is the Spectrum. Oh, I got too much paint on it. It's called a Spectrum brush. They don't have, it's its own line, and it's a synthetic blend brush. And I think that says 3000 IF or something like that, but I'm not positive. I'll try to remember to look it up after class, or if anybody's able to look it up now. But again, I haven't reloaded the brush. I've already painted all that color, and it's still going pretty strong. I don't understand why some brushes can do that. I'm also pushing quite lightly. I'm just kind of skimming across the top. Again, I'm letting, if you were really close, you could actually see the texture, because this is on canvas, not on board. Some of that canvas texture is actually creating kind of a slight dappling. I'm letting that show through. So it kind of blends the colors optically, or the values that are underneath. Still going. I'm trying to find really sharp contrasts where I don't want them. Like, I don't want dark lines in the wrong spots. I don't mind them kind of underneath the surf maybe a little bit, but they're also going to be pretty small compared to the bigger waves in the background, right? Because these are just little tiny, more almost just like little lines of foam. So at the tops of those, I can bring more color, and then underneath them, I would add less.
It looks like it's a 3000 LF series, which is the long flat.
Yeah, that would be it. Long, flat, LF. That makes sense. Yeah, and again, I like, as you know, as I get better and better, I'm liking, you know, longer and longer bristles. This one's crazy long. This one's quite long though. And, you know, I do notice that beginning painters feel shorter or feel better with the shorts, which are really, you know, little bristles, because it feels like you have ultimate control. And in a way you kind of do, but you also have very limited expression in your paintbrush because you don't have all the movement and calligraphy that a long bristle is prone to. Let's see if I can, yeah, I'll just paint on the back of this real quick. I can with, and again, this is still, I've not reloaded this brush, so we'll see how long it goes here. But with a long bristle, I can push, turn, and pull and make these really beautiful variations in brush strokes where a flat brush just can't. And I can make very, very nice, fine, almost detailed brush strokes. But the only problem is because it's a long bristle, I am further away from it unless I really wanted to choke up on it. And I usually try to hold my brushes fairly far back. And so there is an innate kind of trust that you will gain as you paint. And it's not only a trust in your skills, but it's a trust in the brush itself. It's a trust that the brush will make beautiful marks, and kind of the beautiful marks that it was made to make. You've got to remember that brushes are made to do calligraphy. There, otherwise they would all just be the pencil shaped, you know, pointy brushes. And that's fine to paint with those, but they don't make that interesting of marks. Still haven't reloaded this brush. This is crazy. Should be making a commercial for them. So where I'm looking on the monitor and I see this really strong line here. So I don't want that dark on top of the foam. I'm going to get rid of that dark up there. So otherwise it goes pink, dark, foam, like cool blue, back to dark again. It just looks too stripy and not natural. So I'll just kind of soften some of that. And don't worry, you guys, I will move on to another thing here. I don't want to make you watch me paint a whole 5 foot by 6 foot painting in the very slow going here. But hopefully, I'm going to zoom back, bring the camera back a little bit. Yeah, see that? Now it's kind of, it has a more gradual turn as it's going in. And this water hopefully feels like if you stepped out into there, you know, it might go over the soles of your shoes, but it's probably not going over your toes. Does that kind of have that feel to you guys? Where maybe the first kind of wave that you might have to run and jump away from is here? One of the legs is sinking slowly. All right. Yeah, and so it's kind of nice having that monitor to check off of. I'm just looking for lines that aren't doing what I want them to do. I don't mind some variation in the lights and darks. I'm just paying attention. Any questions, you guys, in what I've discussed in this painting and kind of the decisions I'm making and how I'm building it up slowly?
I just want to say how much I love that you can't really see where the sea meets the sky.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that was a trick. But that, okay, so yeah, let's go ahead and backtrack just a second, and I'll do a quick overview again of what I did, how I built this painting up. And I'm hoping that I posted the in progress pictures again on the Facebook, and I think even in the email I sent to you guys. Zoom back out. Okay, so when you go back and you look at those photos, and then I'll post the final photo hopefully today or tomorrow, as I build up the warmth throughout it. But what you'll see is that it was very purpley and dark in the beginning. And then I actually went in and added some of the light where I wanted it, along there. I also broke up so that it appears, hopefully, put it in the shadow there. Yeah. In the shadow of my hand, you can see where I broke up so that it looks like little clouds, so that the clouds get smaller as they go towards the horizon. So I went ahead and added some of the light there. And then after that dried, I was using some, I've been using Galkid into this painting just to kind of speed up its drying time. This was an unexpected painting. And like I said, I got a bunch of paintings I need to do towards my show in Cannon Beach coming up. And I figured that if this one works, I would love to have it and love to share it. And so I've been using a little bit of Galkid into the paint, usually just a drop or two. And it does greatly speed up. I'm using the Galkid gel. It does greatly speed up the drying time and allows me to keep working, if not every day, every other day. And it's a big enough painting that I'm able to work. So by adding the lights with the Galkid gel, I was able to come back in a day or two later and glaze into this. So you'll notice in the photos that there's a whole band of red glaze. I glazed that down into the water some. I also, not quite a glaze, but a quite transparent paint using some of the same colors. I used that to infuse with the edges of the rocks so that they also relate to the light source, but I didn't want to make them too bright, right? Because they're black, dark rocks, but just a little bit of that warmth coming around them and kind of hitting them. So this painting has been a combination of all of my tricks. I've got the glazing, I've got the building up of layers, I've got a palette knife, I've got the big brush, the little brush, opaque paint, transparent paint. It's rare that I use all the tricks in one painting. And generally that's just because it kind of hurts the harmony. You usually don't want to use all your tricks in every painting. You kind of got to pick and choose, just like I don't use all my colors. But in this one, there seem to be meshing pretty well. And again, I'm just asking the painting, what can it handle? What does it want? As I'm slowly working my way into it. Any questions, you guys, on that? And otherwise, we'll take a quick break and I will bring up the next painting, which is this guy. I want to go ahead and quickly get into here and finish up kind of the bottom in the water. You guys okay with that? I do notice that a lot of you guys who were painting this left this all just dark like I have it. That was just because it's not done, not because I wanted a big, dark, spiky mass in the foreground. So I'll get in there and bring out hopefully some interest, bring some of the color down. And then this painting could be almost about done, I think. My hope is over the next 2 weeks, because you get spring break off, is that you'll use this time to kind of finish up the projects that you're working on. And I will be traveling, but I will have access to the internet, of course. And so any questions, email me or Facebook, and I will try to get to them. So even though we got 2 weeks off or a week off, I will still be in contact if you want to keep working. Okay, so let's take a 10-minute break. This guy's going to be a little bit difficult to pull off this giant easel, and we'll meet back in at 10:48. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Michael.
By the way, for the record, I think all of us would be content to sit and watch you paint all day.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Michael?
Hello?
Michael? Hi,
Yeah.
it's Lorianne.
Hey, Lorianne.
Hi. I was wondering if you could share with me what kind of easel you use for plein air painting.
Sure. Definitely can.
I was looking at the Joshua Bean ones, I think his name is.
Yeah.
That was recommended to me, but I don't know. Do you have a special rig that you use?
I have 4 different ones that I set. 25. The one that's my go-to, like the one that I just keep in the car,
Yeah.
is called a Strata. It's the setup that I had that went around the world with me.
Oh, wow.
So it's been to 23 countries and it's still going strong. And that means it was being checked in most of the time. So it can really take a beating.
Okay, and it's really lightweight, obviously, too, right?
Yeah, definitely. And the whole setup, I'll go grab the backpack.
Oh, you don't have to do that. Don't worry about it. I just wondered.
So just cleaning it up. Yeah, no, that's good because people asked about this last week too. Delaying, we'll never have to get back to that crazy cloud painting I messed up last week. So this is good. All right, give me, I got that set up. Give me a minute to go get some coffee and I will come up and I'll do a quick talk about one of my smallest, easiest plein air setups because I know other people have questions about that. And then we'll get into it.
Darcy Brayton.
Hey, I'm teaching. Yeah, you, mom, and keep going to the call. Just want to make sure nothing important. Right off. Cool. All right, love you. All right, welcome back, everybody. I'm just going to very quickly go over one of my plein air setups that I use. It's closely related to a whole lot of different setups. Everybody knows about the French Pochade box, the big wooden, looks like a briefcase, the legs fold out, it's all in one piece. Those are great. The setup I'm going to show you now is called a Strada, S-T-R-A-D-A. And why I like this is because the entire setup fits into this backpack, which is basically, you know, just a kid's school backpack if your kids go to school at IBM. I'll just quickly demo this. Before I forget though, how I hold my paintings is a wet box panel carrier. Mine's covered in stickers and all sorts of things. And my name, Plein Air Obsessed, oh, bad words. What this does is I've added a bunch of Velcro and magnets to keep them shutting. But basically the panels slide into here. There's little spacers inside of it to keep them apart. So I can actually load this up with about 4 paintings in each side. I went ahead and just taped 2 of them together so that if I'm out like on a weekend painting trip out to the coast or whatnot, I have a whole nother side that I could add a whole nother 4 paintings. So it's that backpack and this with, you know, I created some straps that I can carry and that. And then the cool trick on this one is because my plein air setup has a very small mixing area and I like a bigger mixing area, I did go ahead and cut some plexi glass. I drilled holes in it on the sides. And this I cut to exactly the same size as fits into this carrier. So at the end of the day, I can actually, along with my wet paintings, imagine this is covered just like this panel up here, or this palette. I can slide that in there as well with my wet paints and store them. So this is the setup that I took around the world with me. And basically what you buy when you buy a Strada is this metal little box. On the bottom, it has a spot for you to add the attachment that goes to the top of a tripod. So this will just slide into there. Let me set up my tripod real quick. This is a very lightweight Manfrotto tripod. Manfrotto's probably one of the best, most famous tripod companies for cameras, for photographers. I'll lower this down so it doesn't get out of the scene. But yeah, it's really light and it folds up really small. It also fits into that backpack, which is great. So that was my whole goal, was what's the least amount of stuff, the least amount of space. This is not the lightest by any means, but it's only a couple pounds. Like I said, it's basically impenetrable. I'm just going to take the 2 attachments onto there. So now it's linked up underneath there. I added a bungee cord, and I'll show you why with a little thing there. And this is it. Can't hardly see it, but it's a box that opens up. It has the little mixing area there. And then you have to paint basically on panels unless you get different attachments to go on here. But the panel will go from here to here. I'll lower this down even more so it's not so far out of the scene. Let's scoot the camera back a little more. Grab a little canvas. All right, another wiped off painting on here. Ended up making a very red canvas. And it just quickly fits into there to there. It's compression hinges. So it just adjusts by touching it, which I really love. I don't have to undo a whole bunch of screws. So that's that. I'm gonna grab the palette that I built to show you why. On the bottom of the palette, I put on, these are just fabric foam things like you put under furniture so they can slide across the floor. I put them on there just so that they fit within this surface so that I can literally just push it down and it stays really firm. The bungee cords come from the back and attach to two little holes in there. So if, strong wind or whatever else comes, it stays attached. So it's kind of got like a flop there. Right? So that's the most important stuff I need. I put my paint on here. I stole my wife's goofy looking little makeup bag. I just keep my paints inside of that. My paint thinner can, which is just one of these. I put a little carabiner like rock climbers use onto that. It fits into a hole on the side. So it hangs there. This is my brush holder. I added carabiners to the top of that. I just, drilled the holes in there. And it also attaches right to the side over here. So now I got my paint brushes hanging off the side over here. My paint thinner hanging over here. Again, I drilled two more holes to the front, and that is for bungee cord. And the bungee cord goes here. And I've got my paper towels hanging off that. Also, if I want to, for my bag, for my wet paper towels, I just use a recyclable, fabric one. And I will actually just attach that onto the sides of my paper towels.
That is brilliant. I love it.
So you can't see it, but the bag's hanging down below the paper towels. Paint goes there. What am I missing? That's it. My other favorite.
Where do you put your vodka?
My vodka is usually just in a flask on my hip, I would guess. I used to wear, what are they called? Like a fanny pack, one of those little bags that you can wrap around your waist. And I would keep my paint tubes in that. That way I could just reach in really quickly. But I kind of didn't like that. I also do have a shelf that I can attach when the legs are fully extended, and I can put my paints there if I want. This is a walkie-talkie bag from Motorola. And just, got rid of the walkie-talkies. And this is my favorite painting bag because it's got all these compartments for batteries and things that it fits my tubes of paint really well in there. And I can put them in this side. I just put them at the counter angle. So if these ones are down, these ones would be up. And they fit right together. So when I have my shelf, I just open that up. I've got my paint sitting there looking up at me. I do notice that, when I'm out painting, if I run out of paint up here and the paints are all the way down on the ground or, scattered all over the place, I'm just so in the moment that I'll forget to reload my colors. So keeping my colors close is important for me. Sometimes I take out an umbrella, and I don't like the kind that attach to my tripod. I just have one that I can stab into the ground. It's just a big long tube that I can carry on my back, but I don't use that too often. I'll usually just try to find a shade of a tree or whatever else. I don't want the direct light hitting my palette or my painting. So I usually will turn it away from the direct light, so it's kind of in the shadow. Otherwise you can go snowblind painting. And that's it. That's my go-to. This is a bag that I just will leave in my car. Like when my daughter was doing soccer, I could just, sit at her practice and find a nice tree to paint, or try to even paint some kids running. If I have an hour in between different events, I can pull it out. It's really fast setup. You just saw that. 5 minutes setup, 5-minute tear down. And I can just stop and paint at a park or wherever really quickly. And it also, when friends call me kind of last minute, hey, we're going out to paint, do you want to come with me? I just don't have that excuse of, yeah, I want to, but it's going to take me all this time to find everything. And so this kit's always ready to go. I do have 1, 2, 3, 4 other kits that I use from time to time, but they're all bigger and more cumbersome. But they also make bigger working areas and stuff. So if I'm going out to do a refined plein air painting, which doesn't happen that much, most of my plein air paintings are just really sketchy and quick and non-committal. The last time I went painting a couple of nights ago with some friends, I ended up wiping every painting off I did. I came home with a gray panel, a gray painting surface, because I wiped it down so many times, but I was totally happy. It was still a great day of out there painting and trying new things and talking with friends and all of that. So we got to remember that, painting is like fishing, right? Never a bad day fishing, if you like fishing, or golfing. It doesn't need to be a great game. It's just the fact that you're out there, you're trying, you're playing, you're experimenting, having fun, pushing paint around.
So can I ask you something? When you put that back together or back to get ready to go out, does that already have thinner in it?
Yes.
All right.
So when I get home, I try to remember, because I usually don't clean my brushes quite as well as I want. And then this is just a little can of thinner. I also keep, oftentimes I'll have 2 of these just in case one gets contaminated, or worse, the wind blows everything over and this gets emptied out. There's nothing worse than just stopping painting because you ran out of something or didn't have something. So yeah. And then the Gamsol is such a high flame point. I can actually keep a jar of that in the car most of the year. I'll take it out during the hot parts of summer, but I oftentimes just have a full jug in there. And it's amazing how many times I've been able to help refill my friends' paint thinner because it does get blown over or knocked over, or they just simply forget it, or it's just pure sludge because they haven't cleaned it in a while. So I actually, if you know those fabric kind of boxes that you can put in the back of your car for your groceries and organizing things, I have an entire one of those set up with backups of everything I could possibly want, including sunscreen, a hat, bug spray. So that's also something that I just keep in the garage, right by the garage door, and I can just grab that, and I'm assured that I have everything. I actually have a second tube of every color. Paper towels, wet wipes.
Can I ask you,
energy.
Where did you get the little holder that holds the paint thinner?
Just look online, but Strata actually is where I get them from. He sells them at a great price. That's Brian Mark Taylor is the owner of Strata. He's a really great painter. And he came up with this interesting, simple design. Really nice guy. He was actually so nice that when I bought this and told him why I was buying it to go travel around the world and paint with kids, that he gave an entire setup to my daughter for free. So I really like the guy.
What do you keep in that box?
In here?
Yeah.
Well, if I didn't set up my own palette, this is the palette.
Right. Okay.
There are times when I just slide a tube. Oh, and I often keep my lid for my paint thinner under there. So that's just a reminder as I'm cleaning up to get my lid back on. It's amazing when you're painting in tall grass or at the beach and stuff, that if you just drop your lid onto the ground, you can lose it. So lots of little things. Sometimes my glasses, sometimes my phone will go in here underneath everything else. Yeah, it's just a nice little storage area. When I was traveling, there were times that I kept my tubes of paint in here because I knew that they wouldn't get punctured by mean baggage handlers. Yeah. Any more? Oh, here's the other option that Strata offers. Is they do have shelves that simply they slide together and they just fit on the sides. So you can make it much bigger that way as well. Some people will put a piece of plexi and make it a bigger mixing area. When I was using it, was just storing my brushes on it. Yeah. The other thing when I have this on there is, where's my paper towels, is all those little clips that I have will actually clip to this as well. So my paper towels can hang right on there. I can just clip this on there. So by using the little rock climber clips, I can do a lot. But I for some reason just don't use these shelves. I like the setup I have better, just because I can throw it all into the wet panel carrier.
Michael, with regard to the wet panel carrier, you said that they've got slots. Are they at the bottom of the carrier or on the sides?
They're on the sides. Yeah, and those panel carriers come in all sizes. I have from 4x6, 8x10. The ones that I showed you there are 12x16. And the reason I chose 12x16 is because 12x16 is the big size that fits in there, but also a 12x12 fits in there and a 9x12 fits in there. And I was able to cut a 12x16 size palette area to paint onto. So that's the most versatile size that I found, because I can literally take 3 different canvas sizes with me. And then there are times, let's see. Well, just like we did with the sky paintings at the beginning, there are times where I'll take my 12x16 canvas and just put some tape on it and divide it into little surfaces, little 4x5, so I can just do quick sketches. And then I can, if any of those turn out, I can just cut them later and, save them.
Michael, I may be missing something here, but when you have painted a panel and you put it into your carrier to take home, how do you keep the wet side from hitting against the dividers?
So there are little dividers down the sides that keep them separate. Let's see if we can make it. So you can see there's kind of dark in there, but there are panels all the way down there. This is the.
I see. They're wide enough that it keeps them completely separate.
Yeah, if you paint really thickly, I can leave a space in between them. And that is one of the reasons I put 2 of them on there, is because I have come home and had them touch, a little bit, especially if somebody throws their backpack on top of it. This is just plastic cardboard kind of setup. So it's not the strongest. I have friends that make their own out of wood, and but they're much heavier, right? And this is, again, the same box that went around the world. And so these things can take a beating, but you can also see I've duct taped the living, crap out of. Duct tape, that's a good thing to keep in your car when you're a plein air painter.
What brand is your panel carrier?
What's that?
Brand.
Raymar, Raymar. And that's also who, for years and years, I bought all my panels from. I really like their cotton panels. They're cheap and they're really nice, but right now I'm just painting on wood. A couple compression, whatever these are called. These are great to keep as well in your car if you have, you know, a small kit of things. It's amazing how many times I end up using these, even like on a windy day, to attach like it to a fence or something. And then these on my bigger setups are really invaluable. I use lots of these. I have a box full of all the different sizes, all the way up to the great big ones. So there we go. Any more questions on plein air setups? This is, again, just a good in-between size. I can paint up to a 16 by 20 inch canvas on this. It can only be 16 high. It can't be 20 inches high. So just keep that in mind. But you can get, this is what slides in and out and keeps it. And it slides, you know, down against this. And you can get ones that are longer. It just adds another thing you're carrying. And then this, the top of the thing that holds the paintings in, slides into two little spots here and locks the box. So simple, but clever.
Thank you very much.
Looks like a garage sale down here beside me. We'll clean that up after class.
Michael, I really, really appreciated that, like very practical and useful demo.
You know, it's too easy to make excuses not to paint. And I know because I make all of them. And so it's always kind of me trying to counteract my lazier self. And so I just take the excuses away one by one. And so, oh, I don't want to carry this heavy thing, you know, far. Okay, make it light. I don't want to, I'm not ready to paint. I'm not set up. Okay, always be set up. Always have a kit ready to go. You know, I've run out of stuff, so I can't paint. So always have backups. Yeah, just keep it easy, keep it fun. All right, so back to this long forgotten painting. It's been fun seeing everybody's how they're all turning out. They're all so different and beautiful, and so many neat iterations of the sky. Some really beautiful colors. If I wasn't almost done, I think I would go back through and steal some of your guys' ideas. But like I said, I'm thinking this one's just about done. I'm just kind of getting down into this area that I never got back to. So this is my chance to kind of come back in, carve out some of these grasses, because I just left a big mushy mess that's nothing. It's just looks, well, it's nothing. It's just my previous sketch. So I want to figure out, how do I carve that away? The cool thing is I also am not really happy with the water. It doesn't really truly reflect kind of what I'm seeing up here, and it doesn't feel that great. So this is my chance to kind of use that water, come back in and create negative shapes, kind of carving the grass using my water. So very quickly, I'm just going to mix up some of the colors I see in the sky, thusly in the water. So we've got kind of our purpley clouds here. And don't worry, I won't pre-mix all the colors this time. So it's a little dark, and more white to it. Now it's a little overly bright purple, so I'll add just across from the color wheel, right? Which is my yellow. Add just a touch of that to neutralize my purple, just a touch. Pretty close. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and think about the orange peachy color that's kind of around it a little bit. I just need those to relate. So my first mixture is very hot, very pink. I can cool that down a touch. Bring in some blue, which maybe was a mistake. We'll see, because blue is the opposite of orange. And I still want some vibrancy, so I may have subdued it a little too much. But again, I'm looking into the reflections. So the reflections, as a rule, the brights aren't as bright and the darks aren't as dark in the reflections in water as a general guideline. All right, now I'm gonna add some yellow. I'll let that go towards green a little bit.
I bet you'd be good at frosting a cake.
You know what? I've never baked a cake. Yeah, one of my daughter's favorite painting tools is a cake frosting knife, though. She actually has like 2 or 3 of them that she bought. She loves painting with those. All right. I think that that's going to work to create that down here. Well, let's see. I put a tiny bit of the Galkit up there, which maybe is not a good idea because I don't have hardly any Galkit in this. So these paints, when they dry, will be a little bit shinier than that. But I do know when I go and varnish it that it will equalize the shine. And in the final class, I got asked, and I will do a little varnishing demo using the Gamblin's varnish, which I think is the best, easiest to use. Just pulling a little bit of the Galkit over here. I'm going to go with the purple first, kind of the gray purpley plum color. And now I want to think about these shapes like that. Just because they're as they are now, I could change them up a little bit, like maybe it opens up just a little more over here and gets a little more sense of depth, and just a little more back there.
Michael, if it's not too much trouble, do you think you could zoom in a little bit?
Yep, I'm going to move the camera just a slight bit over there too.
Thank you.
It's a little cooler than it was, so. So you see, I just pushed my water back a little bit there. Maybe break up the top of this just a little bit. Just kind of looking for where the reflections go. This brush is a mess, so get to a nicer brush that has a better edge. When you're trying to create a nice edge, like a sharper edge, and your brush isn't doing it, it's your brush's fault generally. It just means it's not really capable. You know, it's been used up too much. It's beat up. Those brushes have their time and their purpose, but maybe not right now. Maybe not when you're trying to create a clean, crisp edge. And you can see the difference of these tips of these brushes. So this one's going to create a much sharper edge. This one's much messier.
Are you using one of those Spectrum brushes?
Yeah, this is the same brush I was actually using earlier that's in my hand. I haven't used it yet. So far, I'm still using my crappy old beat up brush. And then I'll come back and refine some of the edges. Letting it get a little too cool, so. And so then it's purple back on top of that light again. I've got it kind of pink, so. And then I let my reflection get too green too fast. So I'm going to bring in more pink into here. Again, I'm just kind of looking up above to see what I think could be going on down here. And I'm just brushing in some big colors, and I will come in and refine those here in a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and move down to my gray greens. One thing I find too with when I'm doing water is I can let it get, I don't really understand this, but I can let it get a little bit darker as it comes closer to me, and it seems to want to lay down a little bit. It's a weird optical illusion. All right, I'm already liking that water a little more. I can bring in a little bit of that warmth that's in some of those clouds. Yeah, it's starting to feel better to me. Let's see, if I measure from here to here, yeah, from here, let's measure backwards. So there, I'm looking at about this, if I just kind of want to go with kind of a direct reflection. All right, so with these grasses right now, I've just got a great big clump. I am going to break those up, hopefully making them a little less heavy, a little less yucky, for lack of a better word. So I'm going to figure out where can I cut into some of these shapes. I'm also looking for above them. Where would tangents be? Like, I just want to make sure like I don't cut my grass so that it's only in the reflection here or in the shadow or reflection, all things like that. So I think I'll leave some of these grasses over here, but I can use some of the paint that is the reflection colors and come in and hopefully make those a little more interesting. I don't want all my grasses just going up and, you know, boink, boink, boink. I've got to think that some of them are lying down, you know, or they're at different angles. All right, see how that all of a sudden just appears to be a negative shape? I can make those grasses nice and sharp by just thinning out the tops of them. Hopefully that's getting a little more interesting. Kind of pruning for interest. Is that making sense, you guys? Just kind of using the negative shapes. Looks a little more grass-like, hopefully. A little less big angry blob. But getting into negative shapes, kind of this, it's like sky holes, but in this case, of course, they're water holes. Can be a lot of fun. Just any questions as I'm doing this? Sounds like nobody's there.
It's probably the difference in contrast between the dark reeds and the water, but those lines appear on the camera to look really light compared to the water in the background.
Right, yeah, and they probably are a little overly bright. Good call. I could probably cool those down. Yeah, that's definitely something. And I was kind of thinking, oh, it'll be fun to kind of come back in after this dries out a little bit and kind of glaze some warmth, and you know, I can glaze some watercolor. But you're right, I should be probably making those less bright, especially the smaller ones should be getting even darker. Yeah, I got a little distracted by and not keeping to the colors as they're coming across. So
Yeah, I was wondering if you'd end up going back later and slightly blending them or leaving them sharp edged.
I'll probably end up having some of both. Just because they are really close to the viewer, they can be pretty crisp. But yeah, I can, yeah, these blues. Yeah, that's always the tough thing when I'm demoing in classes. I kind of want to rush through and then I don't make sure that they're lining up, and then a little bit darker. So when dealing with sky holes, the smaller the hole generally, the darker the, here we go, I'll just pick off some of that paint and that'll darken them up and soften their edge. Dual purpose. But sky holes, and in this instance, like I said, water holes, are generally, the smaller they are, the darker they are, meaning that there's less light kind of getting through and bouncing around. And there we go. Is that appearing to subdue the color quite a bit?
Yes.
Yes, it is. And then are you going to lighten the actual reeds also?
Yes, I will. I will come through and at least some of them describe them a little bit more. And I don't hate what I got going on here. So I'm just trying to bring out just a couple more. And then funny little like octopus growing over here. And again, because it's dry underneath, I could again use my Q-tips to kind of come through. And, you know, if I decide, well, you know what, I've got too many holes in one spot or they're too bright. I can kind of mess them up that way too. Can even bring them back into the water a little bit. There we go, they're getting nice and soft. So it's just kind of a little one step forward, one step back, trying to get them to feel interesting. Yeah, and I'm gonna bring in some of these colors that are kind of back here, at least so they're related. Let's mix up some ugly greens. Can kind of grab a little bit of each color almost. That's one thing with these soft brushes, hard to mix colors with them. They're so soft. So let's start over. All right, so there's quite a bit of red in that green. Then I'm gonna add my French ultramarine and quite a bit of yellow. And let's see where this takes us. I want a reddish, olivey green. It's really reading dark over there on the monitor. And I can create kind of a lighter. It's a little too yellow, I think, for being able to work in this instance. So let's bring in a little more blue and touch of red. There we go. You see how that kind of just neutralized the yellow a little bit there, kind of took it more towards a, see if I put it towards the camera, if you can see the differences. Not a whole lot. I'm just kind of looking into these grasses and kind of saying, you know, what colors are interesting? And I do like the reds, the reddy greens. And because it's nice and close to the viewer, kind of right up on the edge of the pond there, I could probably get away with some pretty strong, as long as I keep them pretty cool, reds, because, you know, they're in the shadows or, you know, they're far from the sun. It's interesting what adding that little bit of white does, really cools it down, which could be good because I do want some kind of cooler colors, but at the same time, they're much redder. You know, again, if I'm thinking about what are the red top edges here, how am I going to get those into there? What color would they be as they get that much closer? Is their hue, you know, that much stronger than back there? Yeah, probably. And so we'll just test it. If I were being a good painter, like you guys all are, I would probably have some nice grass references instead of just making that up. Because otherwise what happens is we just get the same shape over and over. Like if I had a nice reference, maybe I would have a nice cattail or different types of weeds growing along the edge there. Something a little more interesting than just my grouping of spikes that I've done. But in my never-ending fear of boring you guys too much, we'll just keep painting. Just making a slightly darker, adding a little more blue in there, so that will get into the base, you know, kind of the lower areas. I'm thinking about the grasses as they kind of overlap with this tree reflection.
You're never boring, Michael.
I'm never boring.
No.
I appreciate that. Never boring being me, which is pretty good when you're cooped up in a studio day in and day out. All the voices keep me company. I'm warming this dark area up a little bit. You see how I just kind of put it on, tested it out, go, oh, nope, I can even get warmer than that. See if it shows through. And I'm trying to keep my shoulder out of the camera. So I'm just building some kind of foundation. Remember, dark to light for me, mostly. Not always, but mostly. And I'm just kind of seeing what happens here. And even though I've got those nice shapes carved out there, I can bring in some of these over the top of that. My bottom edge of the canvas is pretty thin. It's reading quite purple. So I'm just going to go ahead and let some of these darks cover that so I don't have real transparent. It'll look kind of strange right at the base there. It will look too light, especially when I try to photograph this painting. All right, now I get in towards the slightly lighter colors. Bring in just a touch of my Gamsol. The nice thing too with the Galkid, sorry guys, Galkid, is that it makes the paint a little bit slipperier, a little bit slicker. And I do have a nice soft brush here, so I can just barely skim across the top. Let's see if you can see it across the shadow of the tree there. Let's zoom in a little more. So I'm just slowly breaking up the dark shapes, hopefully. And I let the grasses kind of overlap and dance around. Hopefully they'll, make sense. And I'm just going to build it up from the darks, hopefully to the lights, in a way that looks pleasing and organic, naturalistic. I'm changing the angle of the brush. I'm changing the pressure of the brush. So I'm not making the same mark over and over. Remember, we don't want to just be painting grass. I'm painting just the illusion of it. I'm not thinking grass, 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 grass. I'm thinking interesting brush marks, changing things up. Now I'm going to go over here to some warmer colors. I can probably lighten that up just a touch. A little bit of Galkid again. Keep the slip going in my paint. So here you'll hopefully be able to start seeing transitions in color a little more than you were just a second ago. Grass will generally be kind of thicker at the base and a little thinner at the top. So I kind of will lift my brush up so I can push down a little bit. And then as I get towards the top, I lift it and it leaves a nice point. I'm going to go ahead and get towards my lighter red now. Remembering where my light source is back here. And I'm going to put some of the grasses that are towards the top and towards there a little bit warmer, especially as I get towards this reflection. In fact, as I get towards this reflection, I'm kind of saving that part because I'm going to come back in with some really nice warm colors because of that light hitting behind those grasses. We'll do lots of interesting things. As I get away, I'm kind of, from the light area and the focal point area, I'm going to go ahead and start darkening up, even though they're going to retain these warms so that they relate. I'm going to let them be a little more subtle than over here. Again, it's just kind of a way of helping the viewer know, you know, there's something going on over here, but it's not so interesting. It's not the focal point. It's, you know, you can look over here if you want for a little bit, but I really want you to stay kind of in this area. And I may be risking getting too busy in here, making it too interesting. So I can always kind of come back down and simplify it, dumb it down a little bit if I need to. You know, I can simply just drag a dry brush across some of the areas and take away some of that edges. Remember, our eyes are drawn towards crisp and hard edges, a strong contrast. So if it's not in the focal area, I may want to knock those down. I don't want to obliterate them completely. I don't want to just have mush, but it's just how the human sees, you know, wherever you're not focusing just goes out of focus a little bit. I mean, even just right out of the focal area. So we as artists get to use that. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get crazy. Get towards the grasses here near that little glimmer of reflected sun. Well, let's see, how crazy can I get? Should I test and go too far right away? Sometimes you get rewarded. You're just like, oh my gosh, I would never guessed it could handle that much light, but it really can. So this is pretty darn hot. You can see this is gonna be in these grasses, but it's hot. So let's see if towards where the sun is. All right, I actually like it. So I'm gonna just settle that down a little bit as I go just a touch further from it. Settle that down even a touch further and just mixing that warm color, calming it down by just mixing it into the browny grays. I'm gonna go back up to this warm color. I'm actually gonna bring a little bit of it into the edges in this area. I have to kind of get in and manipulate that. It's a little too strong, but nothing a nice Q-tip can't handle. I just simply giving it a little push. Gets quiet real fast. Let's see, I'm trying to let it focus. All right. So now I'm going to look into other parts of the painting. You know, it's not perfect, but I think it's 100% better than it was. I still have this area to deal with. And then I also, if you remember when these really bright highlights were when I was just kind of showing with a palette knife. They're kind of fun, but like this one over here is so bright and so out of place that something's got to be done. It's got to learn its place. So I'll just kind of mix up a nice gray, green, and subdue that a little bit, just to make it a little quieter. Again with palette, with the Q-tip. There's so many benefits to letting your paint dry and painting over. You can see how it just got calm. It was as bright as over here, and now it's just that much more calm. You can even make it smaller, calmer. Just enough to give us an idea of a bank. I can even drag a little bit of this kind of greeny gray across the top, and it looks like moss or lily pad kind of feeling stuff, the stuff that grows along the banks.
Michael, I have a question.
Sure.
At the very furthest point of your water, you made it very white. Is there a reason for that?
No, it'll get subdued a little bit. I was just testing to see if I could make it look like that. No, it definitely needs to be knocked down a little bit as well. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that so it's not distracting so much. So I'm going to go ahead and muddy it up a touch, cool it down. Clean that brush. And now I can kind of give that a little more form.
Nice.
Little peekaboo back there. Bring a little bit of the rippling of the water to separate the bank. Where do the grasses meet their own shadows? And come back to some of that gray green that I put over here. Drag little bits of that across. As if there's just kind of some stuff growing along the grasses where the water's a little calmer.
Michael, I have a question about that part right there, where the reflection and the grass is in the foreground. I can see the different colors.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it seems to kind of blend together.
Yeah, that value and that value. Let's think what we can do here. Let's gray down the reflection of the tree just a little bit. That's too strong. It's almost the same value as the bright in the water. So I'm going to darken that just a bit. Does that help?
Yeah.
So I just cooled it a little bit, a little more blue, because I wanted the warmth of those grasses to come forward. But I didn't want it so light that it was competing against the water next to it. So it's always a bit of a dance, isn't it? Everything's comparable. And I've got this weird growth of grasses here. I'm trying to figure out what do I do with them. When in doubt, take them out. But yeah, that's kind of how we start finishing paintings, is we just keep looking around, like, is this working? Is this working? Could I use, more of this, less of this? Let's go ahead and bring some of these grasses down, but I got to keep them in the shadow because they're on the dark side. But I don't want just a straight dark shape that I have here. I want to kind of hint at some things. So I got to see, can I, there we go. Just give it a little texture down into the darks. Just kind of breaking it up a little bit. Same thing's going to happen back here, but I got to glue that down just a little bit because it's a little further away. So and we're in the shadows. Don't want it to be such a consistent color all the way across. So I'm just kind of, as the grasses, kind of where the water goes up, generally I'll just kind of have like a, where the water changes angles. I can generally break that up with some grasses pretty easily. Also break some of that shape up. Take some of these grasses up a little bit as if they're a little taller. So I'm just kind of taking any crisp lines that I have for my initial drawing, just seeing if, can I break those up? Can I make them a little more organic? Nobody's out here maintaining this creek. Nobody's cutting the grass except for the moose. So I think I told you guys this place is called Moose Creek, this painting is of outside of Jackson Hole, Wyoming. My back is to the Tetons here in the real photo. Now it could be anywhere USA, but it's funny because I've gone there 3 or 4 times to paint, and one time I got there and there was truly a mother and baby moose in this watering hole, which you don't want to paint around moose. It's something I understand and have never questioned the wisdom of that. So this is kind of funny. I got some nice pictures. I mean, they were actually hiding kind of in the grasses and stuff. So I did not paint there that day, just kept moving on. That's the funny thing about painting in the Teton National Park is so much wildlife. I've had to move because of bears in the area. I've had to move because of baby elk started coming and hanging out with me, and I was so scared of its parents coming to look for it that I left. I've seen quite a few moose. Oh, and then the next year when I came to paint this, a beaver had dammed it up so completely that it had actually all grown in, and there was just, you could barely see the water at all. So a lot of fun to kind of go and revisit certain areas year after year. I used to go to Jackson Hole because I had a gallery that I showed at there every September for a show, and I would just stay out there in a little hostel and by myself, didn't take the family, and because it was when school was starting, and just go and paint every day from sunrise to sunset, and at the end of my week go drop off my paintings at the gallery, and it's a lot of fun. But there's a lot of time when you're out there by yourself, you're just like, oh man, I wish my daughter was here. I wish she would love to see this baby moose, or oh man, my wife would just love this sunset. So it's nice having that time to paint and just, move around freely, but at the same time, we want to share the beautiful experiences and things we see. All right, so now I've got this kind of mess of trees kind of growing right into the water. I kind of showed, again, I very quickly just did, I don't know why it's not refocusing. Focus here, camera. Thanks. This is just some trees that were growing right out of the water. Whether or not that's a great idea for me to put them like they were, probably not. I maybe could have put them on the bank or maybe even coming right off the bottom of the scene, but we've got them. That's just the palette knife stuff that I did to kind of show where they sit in the water. It's not, doesn't look good, wasn't done well, so we get to go in and fix that. And I just ran out of paper towels. All right. Luckily, I got my plein air kit right here. So first, I think I will subdue this a bit. You can even use some of the sky colors to kind of come in there and give it its kind of ripply goodness. I'll let some of that nice light show through. But not as much. Again, not necessarily a focal area. I'm just kind of using those ripples to describe the structure where the tree is here, the grasses are kind of back here. I can even bring in some of that green, grassy, kind of seaweedy feeling stuff across here a little bit. This little algae likes to cling to the edges of the swamps. It's kind of a nice thing you can use to separate sometimes. That's not always there, of course, but I knew it was here. All right, so I've got some grasses here and some tree here. I'm not too worried actually about what's going on in here. I actually kind of like the roughness and lack of description. I definitely will have to come back in and kind of blur some of this a little bit. It's too crisp, especially down in here. So before I take the photo to share of the finished painting, this will definitely get a little softer and a little more interesting. All right, I'm gonna make some darks. So I got my French ultramarine, my cadmium red, and a touch of lemon yellow. It's kind of my go-to dark with this paint palette. Easy one to modify. I got a very cool dark. Oh, you guys can't see that at all. Just right here, kind of a cool dark. So I'll be grabbing into that to give myself a little bit of my structure back. I can even bring some of that into these grasses if I want. It's a little bluer than I want, so I'm gonna add a little more red to it. Oh, you guys can't see it again, I apologize. So I've got my darker blue, and then in the middle of that, I've just kind of added a little warmth just because it's reading as too cool of a blue down in these grasses. So figure it'll do the same over here in this tree. And I'm just gonna kind of imagine a couple trunks kind of coming up. I can let them kind of appear and disappear because, there's leaves growing in front of them. And I will bring in some light into those trunks, just a little bit, a very cool light, kind of a reflected light bouncing within the tree. So let's get back over to here. I'm just adding a little bit of the sky purple. I'm going to add that into my darks, get it into the warmer darks. Want a little more warmth in there. I don't want it too bright. It's just going to be brighter than the darkest area. And I'm going to bring that on to the edges of these trunks so that you guys can barely see them. They're just kind of hinted in there, these little darks. I'll bring in little hints of the light side of them. Still want them a little warmer. Too much. So darkening and cooling that. Too dark, man, back and forth we go. Sometimes the paintings just fly out and other times you just, too much red. No, now it's too much green. Now it's too much red again. I'm going to zoom out a little bit in hopes that it doesn't just keep trying to refocus on my arm. I don't want anything over here being too exciting, but I do want you to not just read it as a big dark mass of nothingness. Realize I went too high up with this bright, the water wouldn't be back up there. So I'm trying to create the idea that little bits of that water is peeking through there. Maybe I can even take some of these grasses. Down a little bit. Kind of too perfect right here. Figuring out what I can manipulate. All right, just like the grass is over here, that's a little bright. So I'm just gonna take my paper towel and wipe it back a little bit. Subdue it. I'm gonna bring a little bit of color onto the tops of kind of the stuff that's going on down here. Too light. So when I realize that it's not the right color, right value, or right temperature, I stop painting and just go try to fix it. Try to choose a better color that's going to work better. Still can see in some of your work where you probably know that you're not quite getting the right color, right temperature, right value, but you're like, well, that's too bad, but that's the color I mixed, so I'm stuck. All right, gang. Anything obvious that you guys are seeing here that you think that's really bothering you?
How about reflection of the tree trunks?
These?
Yes.
All right, let's do that. Kind of like that.
Yeah. I'm fixated on reflections now.
Yeah, isn't that so funny when you see a thing, how you can't not see the thing? But I think that is how we get better. I mean, our brain loves to do chunking, right? Where it's like, okay, now I'm working on this. Now I'm working on that. Excuse me. Woo. Yeah, I swear there has been times in my life where all of a sudden I mix up a new color that I have never mixed before. And then I go outside and I see the color. And I'm like, did I never see this color before? Like, is that possible that it is a new color to my brain? You guys have had that experience, I'm sure, where somebody says a word that you've never heard, and all of a sudden you read it the next day in the newspaper. You're like, how is that possible? Or different
When
things.
you're looking for a certain new car.
Yeah. Yeah. Or yeah, anything. Like, remember when we were building a new deck and all of a sudden our walk is, all about decks. My wife and I go for walks most every evening. Or now we're into gardening and our yard went from a shade yard to a sun yard because we cut down a gigantic dead tree or a dying tree. And now that's all we, walk around and talk about is everybody's yards. We're very judgmental. But it's a lot of fun because, before I was looking at everybody's shade plants, everybody's hostas and ferns and everything else. And now I'm really just fixated on their sun plants. I still don't love this passage here, just my lazy attempt at covering that. So I'm going to bring back in a couple more darks into that just to break it up. It's just too big. Whew. All right, and that's just too bright underneath there. So unfortunately, I got to get rid of some of those beautiful pink highlights. I hate it when you that's my favorite part, but it's not working. Got to get rid of it. All right, gang, I know we only have 25 minutes left, but we did have some technical difficulties and stuff, so I wouldn't mind going a touch long if we need to. I did want to get back and talk about some of your guys' paintings on Facebook, and I did not get to the wave painting or the big cloud painting from last week. Hopefully you can forgive me. I'd rather talk to you guys and look at your paintings, speaking about being judgmental. Let's take a 5-minute break. And for those of you who would like to stay and have me look at your, anyways, 5-minute break. We'll come back and let's look at our Facebook page and see where everybody's going and talk about what we're going to do. Yeah, my internet is unstable, it's saying. So I'll see if I can't also figure out what that means. Why? All right, great. 5 minutes.
I can see your lips moving, Michael, but I can't hear you.
Okay.
I think we just lost our instructor again.
I can see his room and the candle flickering, but I don't hear him.
It says he's muted.
I think he was taking a 10-minute break.
He's probably trying to get the internet working, right?
I don't see him at all. So some of you are doing better than I am.
Maybe he had to go to another room to get things going. Okay.
Can't hear you.
You're muted, Michael.
No
All
picture,
right. Can
Michael.
you guys hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
we can hear you.
Okay. Yes. So it keeps kicking me onto our actions in the house, and I got a really good one upstairs just for that, but it's not working. So now I'm sharing it with my wife and daughter, who are both on Zoom calls as well. So we're gonna hope for the best right now. Yeah. Anyways, we'll hope for the best. Oh,
Just in case we lose contact, could you tell us what our assignment is this week?
our assignment is to finish up the paintings that you are working on. And then we have the whole spring break. So you get a chance to start another painting, anything that you would like help on that you're kind of interested and excited to work on. That's kind of, so I'd kind of a choose your own painting kind of based on what we've been learning for the next one. And you're welcome to start when we get back as a class, or if you'd like to be working on it during this next week, that's great. I will be taking my little plein air kit. We're going to Central Oregon for, I think, 8-9 days. So I will be doing hopefully some plein air, and I'll probably take my little watercolor or gouache setup as well. Yeah, so it's finishing up the paintings because I know some of you need a little more time. For the rest of you who are flying along, I would love to just have you start your next painting. This one's kind of the choose the painting that you want to paint. What is something that excites you? A lot of you have come to me with questions about different aspects. So like Kate, maybe you're doing reflections and shadows since that's exciting to you. I know a number of others were interested in just different things. So this is our opportunity to work on specifically the issues and get feedback from me and from everybody else on those, on that. And I'm just kind of doing a quick scrolling through, looking for examples of different things that people are focusing on, which is great. I think that's so neat that you guys are all kind of realizing that you're all at different stages, all working on different things. So this is our opportunity to do that. For the last class, I would love to have kind of a couple questions. For the design class, I basically did a quick demo painting, kind of a small, I think it was 12 by 12 inch. I would love to do something like that if that's what you guys would like. What would you guys like to do for your one final class? Because it's not really great to start a whole nother big project.
Varnish.
So I would be happy
Varnish.
to do kind of what would be considered like a quick draw. And I also would love to show you there's two other
We lost you, Michael.
things.
Is there anyone else who would like to do clouds?
I'm gonna work on light.
I'm
I'm
a
having
cloud
trouble
person, it's
last
Jean.
week. I'd like to see what Michael ended up doing with last week's assignment, because I did the same thing by taking out the colors I had in the clouds, and I'm back to kind of ground zero.
Yeah, I'm struggling with that painting because I'm not getting the clouds right somehow.
Clouds,
I
clouds.
can't find the color. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm really
I'm-
interested in seeing how he does the ocean. I've kind of came to a stop on the lower ocean because when I'm very new, and my water on the ocean bottom, kind of like on the sand, where the sand meets the water, it looks like it's running uphill, or I don't know how to do that.
Okay. I
Yeah,
want
I
to see him.
love-
I definitely want to see him varnish because I spray varnish. I don't paint on varnish, and I want to see him do varnish. So I know he said he's going to do it. So yeah.
Yeah, I would love to see oceans, but maybe that's for the next class.
You're back, Michael, but you're muted.
All right, thank you. I apologize, guys. Lots of issues today. Yeah, it just keeps sending me through all the different connections saying you can't connect to this one, you can't connect to this one. And again, now I'm on the weakest one in the house, which is strange. I don't know why that is. Okay, so I heard Kate say something about oceans. So anyways, here's what I was thinking about for the third class, so not to start a big project again as we finish up, but there's a couple things that I never got to in this class that I would love to share. And the first is kind of doing the wiping away method of starting a painting. I would really like to also talk about starting with a toned canvas. That's something we haven't done in this class and is a great way to get the effects of glowing transparency. So what I was thinking I would do is prep two canvases, one with a cool light blue or light gray blue background and one with a yellow or kind of a pinky orange but light color background, and do a wiping away method on both of those and just show you how fun that is. It's a great way to start a painting, to build it up quickly. And it's a whole nother effect that we just, unfortunately, 6 weeks goes by too fast. You guys are too awesome. So that's kind of what I would like to do, but it is our last class and you guys have lots of questions still. So whatever you guys, I'm totally open.
I think the wiping away sounds great. I've never done that, so that'd be something new.
It's so fun. It's really neat. And it's very interesting. And yeah, I would love to do that. So basically, let's do the last class as kind of a final critique and doing a wipe away method on a cool background and the wiping away method on a warmer background.
Hey, Michael, this is Shanda. So I'm struggling with the clouds from the last class. Somehow I'm just not able to get them right. I don't know if if you could do a quick demo on just the clouds per se.
Sure.
I'm having trouble as well with the colors. I ended up wiping mine away like you said you did.
Yeah. I'm looking at Michelle Fritzler's
Yeah, I
clouds are
was
looking
waiting
so
to
good.
watch the ocean, how you do the ocean and where the water meets the land.
Oh, okay. I can quickly talk about that, but yeah, it's basically kind of what I was doing today in the big painting is don't overthink it. Look to the colors and, it's basically reflecting the sky. And yeah, I can demo some of that. I'm trying to think of what referencing I can do with, so let me think on that, and I can definitely bring clouds and ocean into one of the two wipe away methods, because it's not a one-way thing. It's not like I just wipe it down and then I'm done. It's a wiping it down, building up the forms, and then adding color and everything else. So I have an idea. It'll be kind of similar to the very first class I did in the design painting. I've got a really beautiful grasslands reference that I'll share with you guys. Very tonalist kind of scene. And then I'll see if I can't find kind of an oceany scene as well for the second one. So that way I'll deal with clouds and ocean, maybe some rocks as a reference. How's that sound? Kind of a
Fantastic.
Sounds great.
everything all at once. Yeah. Thank you. See, that's the feedback I was hoping for, is so that we're learning as much at the same time on different things and different techniques. So even if you're like, man, I'm not worried about oceans or I'm not worried about clouds, you'll still be learning an interesting, fun technique that will allow you to approach paintings in a slightly different way for those of you who enjoy it and want to do it. Okay, so homework, finish paintings. If you want to start another one, if you've got something that you'd like to paint for yourself that you've kind of been like, this is the image I would like to work on, and I would love some feedback from the class and from Mike. Let's get those going. We have 2 weeks, and even more. You have the third week as well. And then on the last class, I will do the demoing and giving feedback on where you are on your projects. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Cool. Was everybody who wanted to able to sign up for the next class? I know there was a couple people that the link wasn't working for properly. I was able to find a direct link and I posted that to the Facebook page.
I was going to do that today.
Cool. As long as I didn't blow it too much. Great.
I found out too that joining the Oregon Society of Artists, that membership dues are tax deductible.
There you go. Yeah, and if you're thinking you're going to take more than one class, it's definitely worth becoming a member. Plus, it goes to a great cause. The Oregon Society of Artists does a lot of amazing things. They work with handicapped people. They have special classes for kids after school. They have special classes for war vets and military members. They do lots of really neat things for the local Portland people. So if you're wondering about where that goes, that money goes to good causes and keeping the doors and lights open and on. All right, let's quickly jump over until basically my computer drops again. And let's go over, and I would love to talk to some people maybe that I haven't talked to yet about their paintings. So I'm going to do a share screen, jumping over to our Facebook page.
When is your show in Cannon Beach?
First week of May. Let me check real quick. So the actual unveiling and opening and like where music and everything, food and everything else cool is April 30th through May 2nd. I will be out there doing demos and talking to people pretty much all weekend. So that's Cannon Beach, and it's called Spring Unveiling. And so there'll be shows in every one of the galleries. It's a really awesome time to be out there, either for a road trip or if you can stay a night or two. They've got lots of cool things going on, and will be a little bit smaller, of course, this year, and a little more, COVID safe. So there'll be a limited amount of people in the galleries and stuff. But yeah, I dropped off 10 paintings already, and I'm working on another probably 10 for the show. You guys got a sneak peek at the big one, and you get to help me with that. So thank you. And would love to have anybody that wants to come out for that. It is neat, but my paintings will be up, unless they sell, of course, for a while. I've always got paintings out and that's Dragonfire Gallery in Cannon Beach. It's a really fun, interesting, crazy gallery. So if you don't know it, it's a great excuse to get out there. And some of you guys are probably about ready to start looking for galleries to show your stuff possibly. So another excuse. Don't approach galleries during show weekends though. You want to go and scout the galleries during show weekends. You want to see if they're nice, if they, present themselves well, and things like that. But don't try to show them your portfolio during shows. They just won't look at it. They're too busy. They're too preoccupied. Yeah, and the reason I'm getting ready so early is because basically for shows like this, I think there's 4 artists that are being featured. It's a big gallery space that, for hanging and for taking photos, and they're also going to shoot some video stuff. They need it 2 weeks early, and then I'm gone for a week. So that's where I'm kind of panicking about the next group of paintings that I'd like to get them. I've got them a whole bunch of little ones, but now I'd like to get them the bigger stuff. So that's where my nervousness has come into play as far as paintings. Anyways, can everybody see the Facebook page?
Yes.
Yes.
Cool. All right. Who is there anybody that I haven't talked about or talked to during the critique times during class that would like me to talk about their paintings?
Real quick, I interrupted you and you started to say something about my clouds. This is Michelle Fritzler.
Yeah, you knew what I was going to say. They're awesome. Where are they? Yeah, what a great start. I looked at that and I'm like, thank God I wiped mine off. You're really off to a great start here. I can see what you're building up. Way to kind of, build up the transparency and building up the layers. I looked at that and I was like, yeah, that's what I should have done. Is you got much more nice kind of gray colors, and then you're going to get to come in if you want and slightly glaze into some of these and build up some of your layers. I'll be curious if you're planning to put in the tree or not. This is a view of this is a view from a cabin / lodge. They call it a lodge because it sleeps 16 people. That I'm very fortunate to have some of my collectors own it. They have a lot of my paintings now. And they let me stay there for a week. And I invite out a group of my friends to come and paint for a week. And that's the view from my window where I stay when I of course take the best room. So that's a view I know well. And I probably literally just rolled out of bed. And oh no, that's sunset. So I probably wasn't rolling out of bed. But I got a lot of beautiful sunrise pictures of that view too. Yeah, I think that's the same night as the other big cloud photo was taken. It looks like, I think that's the big dancy cloud there on top right corner. Anyways, I was just going to say, nice job, Michelle. I think you're off to a great start there. It looks like you're feeling pretty good about it too. Do you have any questions while we're on it really quick?
Just like I said, I have trouble, the kind of blending in those clouds, the rain clouds in the back with the sun. That's one thing, sort of how do I end and begin that transition? And then making the reflection of the water not look like it's going uphill or downhill.
Yeah, so I mean, when you've got a strong horizon line like that, and probably my photo is crooked, you really got to measure that out and make sure it's like I always say it's better to be way off than slightly off when you're doing a horizon line on an ocean. So yeah, I basically will measure both, both sides very specifically, even take the same measurement, put it in the middle, make the 3 dots and connect them. And
I did actually do that. I think I'm shooting it at an angle, but I'm thinking about where the bright sunbeams, which I decided I wanted them to be a little higher. But where that and the clouds on the right blend.
Yeah, so it's going to be, think kind of as like we did when we were doing the horizon line up to the top of the sky, that kind of gradation of light. Some of that same thing is happening in here. You're going from the light towards the shadow. So in this case, you can kind of think of the dark clouds as being blue or purpley, definitely gray, but kind of in that family. So if we look at or kind of imagine almost the rainbow, but it's going to be very subtle. What are the colors that transition from one to the next? So you got kind of a purpley, bluey gray in your clouds. So then as you come here, it's going to start leaning towards the pinks and the reds a little bit in this area. So you've got to kind of think transition color, right? It doesn't usually just jump from yellow to purple. There's going to be those transitions in between. I can't remember who I was speaking to, but was asking about the glowiness. A lot of times the periphery between the lights and the darks is where we get some of our most beautiful and intense colors. But of course, because it's a rain cloud, it's dissipated. So you're just looking at the slow gradation. This is definitely going to be redder, pinker, kind of on the edges here. And that will create a color gradation as well as like you've got a beautiful value gradation going out, going in. But now we need to start thinking the color and temperature gradation. So if you just kind of think of, you can go either direction. You can go from yellow to the purple. What's the colors in between? Or purples to yellows, whatever it is. But there's usually a logical gradation in sunsets. Where I see people going off the rails is where they just kind of don't think what happens between, between yellow and red, you're usually going to have orange, at least some, a slight, it needs to go through those shifts. So I would almost ignore the yellow. Well, not ignore it, leave it, but then start thinking, what's the color right around that yellow that I like? Okay, it's that kind of nice pinky color, right? And I eventually want to take it to here, which is kind of a grade down purple. Okay, so what's that gradation? It's purpley towards pinker. And that should logically work. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
If this is dry, go ahead and just put a little bit of quinacridone red, transparent quinacridone red into here. Leave it kind of overlapping a little bit here and then take it to about here and then bleed it out. And I bet you'll get a lot of that gradation. I would just put it on and then wipe it back off and leaving just a hint of it. And I bet you'll get a lot of that gradation. That's kind of what I did with the big painting that I was doing in the sky. It was a lot of quinacridone red. I'm kind of slowly falling out of love with cadmium red light. I'm actually finding that a lot of the transitions I can actually get with quinacridone red and yellow. I don't know if it's just a personal thing, but I'm finding that the cadmium reds are great for really intense spots, but for gradations and stuff, I actually took, for that big painting, I actually took the cadmium red off the palette just because I found it getting in the way. I found myself wrestling with it. And I found there was a lot more harmony by just having one cool red that I could warm up with the lemon yellow or Hansa yellow light or whichever yellow it is on there. I'm not sure. Okay, great. Thank you. And wonderful job, Michelle.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Michael, this is Kim. Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Today, what colors did you use on your last painting that you were painting on?
The split primary.
Okay, with the
So-
lemon yellow.
And then I used Indian yellow, but I never even touched it.
Okay,
Hardly at
what was
all.
the
I think
last? Was the blue cobalt blue at the end?
I
Or was
don't
that
use- I don't-
manganese?
manganese and
Mang-
French ultramarine.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
I never use cobalt. Again, I love the color. I just don't use it. It's like I should experiment with it, but I'm always experimenting with something else. Something always skips the line and gets in there. Mary, I talked to you each class. I loved your blog, Mary. I think I quoted you. You had such a great quote in there. I'll see if I can find it here in a little while, but nicely done. Who's somebody else that I don't normally or haven't gotten the opportunity to talk to that would like to ask some questions?
Michael, this is Shanda.
Who?
I think we've spoken. I just have one painting in there that I'm still working on the clouds one, so I haven't posted that. But
Okay.
the lake one that we did, I have that up there. If you scroll down,
Okay.
and it's right in the middle. Up, no, sorry, go up again. Go up left. Yeah, that one. Sorry, you were
Okay.
just the one below. The one below that.
This
The
one?
right. The right. Right
This
of that. Yeah, that one.
Oh, great. Okay, good. Well, that's perfect. That's what we were just working on here. Okay. I mean, what a nice feeling of warmth and glow you've got going on here. And it's kind of interesting because I might have resisted using such a high chroma red right in that space, but it kind of works. And sometimes, skies are so strange and interesting in what they do. You think you understand how light works in a sky and in clouds, and go out there and you see just something completely new and different. So a lot of times I kind of go, well, if it works, it works. And I kind of like this. I think that it has a nice warmth and a nice glow and a definite intensity. It really says, look here, this is what this painting is about. The rest of it's a bonus. Probably my favorite part of your painting is actually your transition up in here. I just think this section, I mean, if you could just cut this out right here, that is beautiful. Look at these little cloud floating up there, up against it. And it's just really warm. And then you're not changing the value. Like it's not getting lighter to darker. If I took a black and white, this would almost all appear one value.
Yeah.
But it's your temperature shift and your chroma shift from pretty pure, nice, clean, nice, warm chroma meaning color. Same within right in this little area. And then instead of going from light to dark, it's going from pure, warm, cool, nice high chroma color to just grayer, which is kind of getting towards the greens. And then you get up into the cool blues. And I mean, that's just something else. That's really quite beautiful, very subtle, not easy to do. May have been an accident, but don't tell me.
It just worked, I guess.
Yeah, sometimes that's the case. And that's why we paint, right? Because sometimes it just works. And hopefully we're cognizant enough, aware enough while we're painting to go, oh, what did I do? Okay, step back for just a half a heartbeat so I can replicate that. Because there's nothing worse than a super perfect happy accident that you don't know how you did and can't replicate.
Exactly.
So what you did here was you didn't worry about values, which is something I talk about a lot. But in this case, because your values stay very similar and you're just dealing with intensity of color to grade down color, it really works. Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
cool.
So now when I get down here, you see your darkest darks in this painting is this band of trees back here.
Right.
So that looks out of place because as things are going back in space, so we're looking at these these grasses, the banks, these trees, this is where our darkest shadows should probably exist. Because as we're going back, these might all be in shadow because they're backlit, but they have a lot of layers of atmosphere. If your hills are this light, then somewhere in between that and the darks in here is probably where your shadows in this tree line are going to live.
Okay.
And that will really push that back, because you see how these darks, if we isolate them, they just really want to come forward. They're really strong and very graphic.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also, you've also got some of your crispest edges are in this line of trees. And like I said earlier today, our eye is attracted to contrast, both contrast in edge, like crisp edges, contrast in value, contrast in color, and contrast in temperature. Our eye is drawn towards that. So if you don't want my eye right over here on this little edge, this contrast needs to be played down.
Okay.
You can soften the edges. You can make this not so bright. You can bring some of the warmth in, all sorts of different things you can do. But this, my eye really does want to go here because it's a very interesting little shape. And this is not where you want me going.
Right. Yeah, makes sense.
You want me here and kind of in here. Really quickly too, I know that the photo reference is a strange one with the meandering Moose Creek. Yours does not look organic. Yours looks like man-made.
I struggled with that lake and the little creek type thing going in there quite a bit, actually. I had to rework that part.
Well, I can get you out of it. You can just say, you know what, that's a golf course.
Yes.
Put
Actually, my husband said that the grass back looks so perfect. It almost looks like a golf course. That's exactly what.
And then these perfectly edged waterways.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm just being aware of that, saying, okay, you know, you can use this as your shape, but how do I make it more organic? What do I do to break it up a little bit? And you saw I was coming in and, you know, breaking up some edges, adding some grasses and different things. So,
yeah,
you know, here or there, but yeah, it looks very perfect. And then even your trees look very perfect, that they're kind of like the grass is so even, and then a tree just appears. So you can, you know, look at how other artists deal with that, look at other scenes, even look into the photo that you do have the reference. A lot of the information is there.
Mm-hmm.
As far as perspective, we have the big tree, kind of big bush. And even though we know it's not a huge bush, it's just kind of closest to us. And then you have this one, and this one. Do you see how by having a small one in the middle, it kind of messes with the perspective a little bit? Because if these are all three related trees, I would have made this one smaller or this one bigger, or let me by simply chopping the bottom of it here, a little higher up than this, it'll appear to go back into space. And it wouldn't matter if you had more, but because you have three trees that are all basically the same shape, the same form, they look so related that it kind of a little bit doesn't feel like a mommy tree, a baby tree, and a daddy tree. It feels like, you know, they're all three kind of the same. So, and again, that's here or there, you can totally get away with that, and you could make it work for sure. But just as far as perspective is concerned, if you kind of make the trees get progressively smaller, if they're the same type of trees, like if they're related, like if there was a pine tree, you know, the pine tree could be really big and tall because these are just, you know, low, small trees. All right. As we come forward even a little more, you got the grasses. You saw me fighting with that today. Just how do I make them not look like grass? You know, like each brush stroke equals one grass, and they're all fairly the same. You got a couple going different directions, but if you look into the reference, you'll see again grasses that are kind of bowed over and different shapes and different formations. So you might want to break that up a little bit. You know, and look into it. And I wish when I had done the demo, I hadn't just put that big dark mass in the front. I wish I'd have thought about it a little more. You'd think I'd have learned my lesson in all these years of painting, that, and especially having just gotten done with a design class, to pre-think my drawing and my design a little bit, but anyways.
Okay.
Any questions you have?
I think you've given great feedback. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, there's a lot of beautiful things going on. Nice job.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I guess
Anybody
I
else have
it's a
any-
whole lot.
Yeah, no, it's a lot, and you've taken on a lot, and I appreciate all that you guys are all doing. This is not easy stuff, and it's I'm a motor mouth. I give you guys too much information every class, and I know that I just get excited and want to share everything I know. There's just not enough time.
Yep.
Great job. Anybody else?
I have a question, Michael.
Is that Kate?
This is Kate. When I take pictures with my phone, the colors aren't real accurate. So
Right.
is there a way to fix that, or is that something we just have to live with?
I mean, if you're just going to accept it like straight from your phone, yeah, you got to live with it. But there's so much great software that you can manipulate and change things to be more like you want. I could do a whole class on that. And let's just everybody pull out a pen and paper, and I'm just going to quickly walk through the process of how I take photos and what I do when I'm going to paint from them generally. Okay, so
I meant my painting doesn't have.
Oh, well, same thing. It works both ways. So there's a lot of photo manipulating software out there that's free. Let me find my phone really quick, make sure I'm using the proper names. The one that I like the most for me, I'm gonna open up my phone here, is I use one called Snapseed, one word, SANPSEED. The other one I like is called Snapseed. And if it has a cost, it's like $2 or $3. The other one I like is called Afterlight, AFTER. Light. That's not downloaded on my phone right now. So I'm quickly trying to download it to see. I haven't used Afterlight in long enough that my phone cleaned it off. So
is that life or light?
Light. After light. So one word, AFTERLIGHT. And then my one that I use, and we talked about this quite a bit in the design class, is called Notanizer. And that's what I use to turn things into black and white and notan and value studies. And that's, let me go back, make sure again I'm saying it, NOTANIZER. They're all simple. That's why I like Snapseed and Notanizer. They're all quite simple. I can do it literally, in a couple seconds while I'm out shooting. If you want to take better photos while you're actually taking the photo, because I'm a little bit lazy on that, I generally do a lot of my fixing on the back end. But if you're a little more technical and are willing to experiment and learn, there's an app that I really like. I just don't use it as much as I should, called Pro Camera. PROCAMERA. And that literally turns your iPhone into a SLR camera where you can do all the adjusting right in frame, just like you would on your good professional camera. It's amazing. And the coolest thing about Pro Camera is that with the iPhone, you can adjust, the focus and where the light is focused by touching your screen. With Pro Camera, you can touch it twice. So it opens up so that you can focus in on your lights, and also, so I can focus in one area, but control the lighting in another area of the picture. So that's a huge benefit, like when I'm shooting in that foresty scene, like I showed you at the beginning of class along that creek. Pro Camera, I just have not gotten proficient. I've not become a pro at Pro Camera. So every time I open it up, I feel like I'm experimenting a little bit, but it sure is nice. So how I shoot my photos really quickly is, let's just pretend we are, and I'll get back to your question, Kate. Let's just say we're at the beach, sunset, and I want to get the waves, I want to get the beach, I want to get the people, I want to get the rocks, I want to get the sunset, and I want to get the clouds. Okay, that's almost impossible, even with my new iPhone 12. It's just not quite smart enough to see everything. It basically says, okay, we're taking everything towards the middle value-wise, or I'm focusing in on the lights and making the darks too dark, or I'm focusing on the darks and washing out the lights. When in doubt, focus on the lights. Okay. You can go back and lighten your photo and pull out some information in the darks. But if you focus on the darks and you wash out the lights, sorry, you cannot get that information back. It's gone. Okay. So your camera is actually gathering data in the shadow areas, but it's not gathering data in the washed out, bleached out areas. So when in doubt, like if you're literally doing a drive-by and don't have time to take more than one photo, focus on the lights. When I'm in a scene, like I just said, where there's so much cool stuff going on and I want to capture all of it, I'm going to take 3 photos. I think I may have talked about this previously, but maybe not. I'm going to touch my screen into the lights and focus on the sunset and get as much of that color and the, delicate clouds in that area as I can. Then I'm going to touch into the mid value. So I look for kind of a mid value range, and I'm going to touch into that, and that will give me the information that's kind of in between. That will probably be the photo that I'll paint from. And then I'm going to touch into the shadows, and that's going to bleach out my lights and my brights, but I will get the detail of the darks. Then when I'm painting, I will probably print up all 3 pictures, probably focusing in on one more than the others, deciding what's more important, the lights or the shadows or whatnot. But if you have the time, and because digital photos are basically free, take 3 photos of anything that you think you're going to paint from. It will save you so much heartache, because there's nothing worse than getting home and, oh, I can't wait to share these sunset photos, and getting home and having basically a beach scene with a bleached out sky. Oh, you had to be there. The colors were outrageous. They were just the best ever. Okay. So Kate, where the other apps come in, and again, Snapseed is my go-to. It's the fastest, but it's also kind of the dumbest, but it does 90% of what I want. So I will open Snapseed, and in there it asks me to open the photo. I will pull the photo that I want, and within Snapseed I can do a lot of quick manipulating, and it does amazing things to the colors, making colors more true. I can even straighten out things, like when you're in a forest, a lot of times all the trees kind of lean in towards the top. There's a way in there to actually straighten the trees, or if you're like in a city and all the buildings feel like they're crumbling down on top of you, you can actually straighten them. It does a lot of neat things. I'm just going to ask that you guys experiment with that on your own. I actually really, within there, I love to use their, what's it called? High def HDR. Yeah, HDR setting. So it'll actually pull out details that you didn't see in your photos, because the information is there. And then I go into the, this is kind of funny, but it's called Glamour Glow. And there's 5 different settings within the Glamour Glow. And the cool thing is all of these are adjustable. So you can have just a touch of Glamour Glow or just a touch of high definition resolution. And so I will bring out the detail, and then I go back in and I soften the detail if I want to. It's a great one if you want to get rid of any blemishes on you or your friends' faces. That's what it's intended for. If you go to my sister's Facebook page, she has a lot of Glamour Glow on all her photos. But it's a great one for softening edges and different things. And within that, you can even tell, I want all the detail held intact in this area, and I want it to kind of blend out and blur out in other areas. So that does a lot of cool things.
Does it work with an Android phone?
You'll have to tell me. I don't know, unfortunately. I've never had one.
You're still talking about Snapseed?
Kate?
Are you still talking about Snapseed for Android?
Yes.
Yes, I just loaded it onto my phone.
Super.
I hope you guys love it. I've been using it for 3 years now. So there's probably newer, better, and there may be even new versions of it. But that I'm just telling you the things that I use and that I'm comfortable with. And again, I like things that can do the most while being the least complicated. And I found Snapseed to be great for that. Let me open my little photography section on my phone, my little photography folder. 5, 10, 13, 17. I have 17 different photo apps on my camera, but I really only use Snapseed. I should probably get rid of a lot of these others. But again, every artist, every person you talk to has their different favorites. And it's because of what you get used to and what you know works for the kind of imagery you want to do. So I'm just telling you what I use. Please, try different stuff and come back if you learn any other ones that you really, really like. But anyways, Kate, I can use Snapseed to manipulate my photos. And the cool thing is it does have a straightening feature where you can pull the edges and make it square. So, and it's amazing. I can take a photo at a pretty hard angle, like almost from the side, and straighten it out. And somehow the thing is so smart that it doesn't distort things that much. It actually looks pretty great. So sometimes when I'm taking photos, the glare on it's really hard. So I have to take it from kind of an angle. I can then use Snapseed and go back in and fix that angle and have beat the glare. And what I will do too is sit with the photo in the light that I want it in, and then I will do a color comparison on Snapseed and with the photo, and that's where I try to get the colors as close as possible. Of course, there's always challenges, and then if you paint like I do with transparent layers and opaque, they all look different under different lighting situations anyways. Which can make photographing it frustrating, but the trade-off is that people always come back to me after they've had my paintings for a while in their house and just say, I feel like I have 2 or 3 paintings because it's always changing under different lighting and different times of day and everything else. And it's so neat, if you have dimmers and stuff, what it does. So, phew. I will talk if you let me. All right, guys, I'm going back over to not screen share just to say goodbye to all 3 of you that are left. I really appreciate you guys being here today. And that was a tough beginning, but you guys are awesome. And I really appreciate it. And yeah, thanks. And I look forward to seeing what you guys come up with over, now you got 2 weeks. You've been doing such amazing work. Imagine what you do with a little bit of extra time. I'm looking forward to it. And I will be online, like I said. So shoot your questions. I might not get to them right away. We're going to do a lot of hiking, maybe some skiing. But I will promise to get to them at least every couple of days. So thank you guys.
Thank you so much.
Safe travels.
Oh,
Thank
and
you so much, Michael.
one last thing. Yeah, if you guys want to do any painting along on the last day, I'll be mixing a little bit of acrylic paint with my gesso. So I'll be mixing a warm base, quite light, and a cool base with the white gesso. So that's how I'm going to prep my panels for the final day.
Okay,
Great.
thank you.
Awesome. Take care,
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye.